Oh, that's
a lot.
That looks like the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
My goodness.
That's blurry.
That's like my eyesight.
Like there's a film over the camera.
Yeah, but the top is clear.
What is that? It's your lady.
No, it's just,
It's just, yeah.
oh, it's the camera in behind.
Filter.
Yeah. Soft focus.
Okay, I will call the regular town council meeting of May 13th to order at 5:01. So welcome everyone. We've got the agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions? CAO Miller.
I do have an addition, your worship, please, under closed session. On number 14.2, it would be regional old council's item under FOIP section 21, disclosure harmful to intergovernmental relations.
Thank you. Any deletions?
None deletion.
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to move the adoption of the agenda as amended? Councillor Good so moves. All those in favor? And somebody will just maybe let me know when Councillor Boychuk joins us. Adoption of the minutes. So we've got the minutes of the April 22nd regular council meeting in front of us. Were there any edits to those minutes that someone has noted? Someone care to move the adoption of the April 22nd regular council meeting minutes? Deputy Mayor so moves. All those in favor? It is carried. We also have the minutes of the April 29th special council meeting in front of us. Any edits to those minutes? Okay, would someone like to move the adoption of those?
I'll move that council adopt the minutes of the April 29th, 2024 special council meeting as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor? Great, it is carried.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
I just got a text from Councilor Boychuk, he still does not have.
Yeah, I'm trying to get,
Oh, okay.
I'm doing it.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, so that's being handled. Thank you, though. Public hearings, we don't have any today. Presentations, none. So onwards to bylaws, and we've got several bylaws here. So first up is Mr. Muckford with bylaw 2153, the 2024 tax rate bylaw.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. So the issue is the 2024 tax rate bylaw for adoption with the first, second, and third reading this evening. A bit of background pursuant to section 353 of Municipal Government Act, Council must pass a property tax bylaw annually. Property tax bylaw authorizes council to impose a tax in respect of property in the municipality to raise revenue to be used for payment of expenditures and transfers set out in the budgets and the requisitions. As part of the tax supported budget for 2024, approved on December 11th, 2023, a municipal requisition of $12,457,970 is needed. The tax rate bylaw must set and show separately all the tax rates that must be imposed to raise the revenue required. Other levies collected through the municipal tax notice include the Alberta School Foundation and North Peace Housing Foundation requisitions. Tax notices will be mailed to property owners in late May, and all taxes are due on June 30th, 2024. In terms of assessment information and financial implications, overall, the 2023 assessment values used in the 2024 tax bills are largely in line with previous years. There's a very modest overall decrease in the total assessed value of taxable property in the town of $7,010,980 or 0.64% reduction. And I summarized in this document all of the major categories and the changes therein. The decreases are generally due to modest adjustments to the property values across northern Alberta and influenced by economic conditions within the resource sector that have affected town. In 2024, the amount raised in municipal taxes was increased from $11.99 million in 2023 to approximately $12.46 million, or around $462,000 increase. And then again, for in the package of summarized sample of residential and commercial properties to demonstrate the impact of these changes in the rates. So the same roll number was used for each property, but you can see that for some of them, year over year, there was a slight fluctuation in the assessed value. So the options before council this evening, council to provide first, second, and third reading of bylaw 2153, the 2024 tax rate bylaw. Advantages are that it will allow the town to levy taxes to achieve its municipal requisition, and it supports the amount approved as part of the 2024 operating budget. There's no disadvantages, and the financial implications are it allows the town to generate revenue to continue operations. Option 2 would be to decline to provide first, second, and third reading. There's no advantages to this, and the disadvantages are that we would not be levying taxes and it wouldn't support our operating budget. Option 3 would be for council to only provide first reading to the bylaw. There's no advantage to this. Disadvantages, it would require a change in the due date of the property taxes and the late penalty bylaw to allow at least 30 days following receipt of the bill prior to it being due. So, and there's a financial implications. There'd be significant administrative time to change those due dates. So the recommendation before council this evening is that council provide first, second, and third reading to bylaw 2153, the 2024 tax rate bylaw. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Councilors, Councilor Good?
Just for clarity, if you take the municipal portion itself, What is the percentage increase ballpark? Because that's the one thing that's not really near the percentage tax increase. I know it doesn't apply to everything equally, but roughly what would it be?
So it worked out to just over a 3% increase. We initially were targeting a 3% increase in municipal requisitions as part of our budget. There's a slight difference in terms of how we calculated it from the previous year, so it resulted in a slightly larger year-over-year change. In that, it basically has to do with how we calculated based on the provincial grant in lieu of taxes. So in previous years, we showed it at a net number rather than the gross. So it makes it from a percentage perspective seem slightly bigger, but yeah, it's in line with what we approved as part of the budget.
Ballpark 3 and change? Thank you.
Any other councilors' questions?
Just wondering if Mark's online now.
Yes. Welcome, Councillor Boychuk. We see your name up there, so. Are you?
Yes, my apologies for arriving late. I am sorry about, I didn't check the link until the last second.
Okay, well, you're here now, so that's good. So of significant note to me was just the big numbers that the town has for assessment in total. Like, I read this and I thought, well, 1.1 billion, that's a lot of property that everybody looks at every day around here. And from my understanding, what you were saying, it's down about 7 million from previous year, but still, it's quite significant up there. And the other thing I noticed is, well, we all know town of Peace River, we have very little machinery and equipment taxes. And I don't know, when people talk about linear, is that going into that category?
No.
Yeah, it's a different, and we don't really have linear. In that sense.
We do with telecoms and power lines and whatnot.
So that would be recorded in here as, where would it be put into? I guess I'm looking at page 2.
Yeah, I don't know where to put it.
But I think if you look at the combined, and I don't remember for Peace River directly, but the combined number for linear machinery, all the industrial taxes, if you combine Peace River, Grimshaw and Manning together, is under $500,000. And we're a chunk of
Yeah.
that. So it's very, very minimal amount in comparison to the overall revenues. I think we're 85 to 90% residential and non-residential, and a very, very small component of other taxes.
Where's the bylaw?
Would that be the designated industrial property line?
Yes, it's in the bylaw.
Yes.
It would be under the bylaw, under the DI properties.
Okay, thank you. Any councilors, questions? Would somebody be prepared to put forth a motion for first reading? of The bylaw?
I'll move that council give first reading to bylaw number 2153, 2024 tax rate bylaw.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion at this point in time? Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Okay, so first reading has passed. Would someone like to move to second reading at this point in time? Deputy Mayor?
I move that council give second reading to bylaw number 2156.
Thank you.
No, 215.
2153.
Yeah, 2153, sorry, I mean,
Okay, 2153. Okay, any further discussion at this point? All those in favor of that motion?
I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, would someone like to propose that we move the motion or the matter be placed for third reading? Councilor Ford.
Thank you, Your Worship. I put a motion on the floor that bylaw number 2153 be placed for third reading.
Thank you. All those in favor of that motion?
In favor.
It was carried.
Unanimously, please.
Would someone be prepared to move to give third reading? Councilor Good?
So
Okay, Counselor Good moved that council give third reading to bylaw number 2153, the 2024 tax rate bylaw. Any discussion? All those in favor of that motion?
In favor.
Okay, it is carried. Thank you, Mr. Mumford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Next up, we have Council Code of Conduct bylaw, CAO Miller. Lead us through this one.
Thank you, Your Worship. So before you, as mentioned, is the revised draft of the Council Code of Conduct bylaw 2154. It was brought before council at the GMP meeting last week, May 6th, and there was a number of articles, additions or corrections or adjustments to a number of articles there listed in the request for decision, and you'll note them, they're all redlined as we go through the draft again one more time. We are seeking first, second, and third reading of council, so desires to move forward with this. We did hear last week some concerns about the length over the bylaw, so we did do a little bit of research and included the Alberta Code of Conduct guideline for council that's put up by Municipal Affairs, and then there it just kind of provided some guidelines as to why it is quite lengthy and the sections that had to be included in the bylaw. So advantages if council does get first reading is we will have an updated code of conduct, bringing it in line with the legal advice that we have received and would represent municipal best practice. And an updated bylaw would provide clarity and guidance to council on some relevant and timely matters. Disadvantages of not moving forward is we remain with the one that we have in play that does have some ambiguity in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so councillors, we had a lengthy discussion last GNP. And as Mrs. Miller has indicated, several changes came up and were changed basically to clarify or add or subtract things. So, so everyone's had a chance to review the document with the changes. And so I think this round, I'm going to just sort of go page by page. And if you wish to make a comment or something on that, those particular pages, it would be the time to do so. So we've got page 1, whereases. Page 2, 3, and part of 4 are definitions. Anything on page 4. Page 5 is where we have some red parts, which mean things have been added, changed, and so on. Comments there. Page 5, there's a deletion. Okay, page is 6. There's no red marks there, but page 7. Page 6, I have red on it. Did I get the wrong page?
Yeah.
Page 6, there's a red one. Page 7, no red. Page 8, page 9. Page 10, there is a red one that is removed to administrative policies. Then some renumbering starts to happen on page 11.
On page 11, under .32, says councilors may attend training or conferences of their choosing so long as there's budget available. Would you reference the policy there potentially?
You'd have to see me do that.
Okay.
The council remuneration policy.
Okay. Oops. Page 12. There's a red comment there and renumbering. Deputy Mayor.
Mark?
I don't know why there's this.
I believe that's okay, I'll pass.
Okay. Okay, so that was page 12. Page 13, renumbering. 14 with some red and renumbering. Page 16, renumbering and some red. Page 15, renumbering. Page 18, some red. Mr. Boychuk, you're following along too? You're able to?
Yes, 100%.
Great. Page 17, there is some red and renumbering. Page 19, looks like nothing. Okay. Is there any other comments someone wishes to bring up at this point? And then we go to first reading no matter what. Hey, does someone want to move us to first reading?
I'll move the council give first reading to bylaw number 2154, council code of conduct bylaw.
Okay, great. Is there any further discussion on the bylaw? This will be the opportunity to discuss. Councillor Carr.
I'm still a little dissatisfied with how long it is and how restrictive it is. I don't understand why ours is, what is it now, 19 pages still? It was last week. When so many communities around have 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages. It seems very, I don't know what's a good word for it, muzzling, handcuffing, restrictive.
Manning's is.
And I do have an issue with that. I just would like to have said that. Thank you.
Manning's
Thank you.
is 7.
That's
not appropriate, sir.
Sorry, Ted, no. Any other comments? And council did provide us with the guide for municipalities code of conduct from Alberta municipalities, which is also quite lengthy. Who's,
Brad has his hand up and I did too.
oh,
Go ahead.
Mr. Boychuk?
Have we ensured that all of the highlighted parts from the councillor code of conduct from the municipalities has been included in our code of conduct?
I'll direct that to CAO.
I missed that, I'm sorry, sure.
Have all of the parts in our code of conduct. Does our code of conduct include the recommendations from the Alberta municipalities? Mr. Boychuk, is that the question?
Yes, because I see we've got a bunch of highlighted parts that have to be included in there, and that we just went through it fast. I wasn't sure if we met all the requirements.
Yes, that would be my understanding.
So Mr. Boychuk is talking about the document from Alberta Unis, the code of conduct. There are several parts in there that were highlighted. I don't know who highlighted them, but they're highlighted. So yes, there's been a correlation between the two is what I'm understanding. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's there. Keep going.
It's page
Sorry.
75, page 74 of the agenda. Council code of conduct.
I think it comes after the old code. Deputy Mayor, you had a comment?
I just wanted to point out that code of conduct document, that is optional. Some of those are optional in there. There is a section that is mandatory and then the rest are optional. I noticed the wording was they may not. And I researched about 30 communities. I'm at 31 now. And not all of them, the main ones they all have, but there are several sections in ours that are nowhere in any of the other ones. So I too have some concerns on this.
So, my thinking on this is, I have sat through, where this has been something that we had to go to to, talk about conduct. And it was very helpful to have things laid out as clearly as possible. Basically, in terms of time and in terms of, what people could do and basically, how conduct issues could be handled or complaints, I guess. Yeah. But any other comments? Councilor Ford?
I have to apologize, I wasn't here for last Monday when a lot of this was being discussed. However, I did read it and, I actually, just because like I have a concern with the length and some of the stuff that's in there, I actually did reach out to, a lawyer friend of mine and yeah, the longer the document, I'm gonna use the same, I guess, the same term as that handcuffing. It's, I definitely don't support this.
Don't sign it.
Mr. Sisson, please don't comment. I guess what you need to do if you disagree with parts of it is suggest which parts of that you disagree with and the council has a discussion. So, and now is a good time to bring it up. So which parts would you think change?
We'd be here for about 4 or 5 hours. I'll just hold my comments to myself.
Okay, thanks. Other comments, so. Okay, so it's past first reading. No, do we, no, we're still. Great.
We're
Okay.
discussing for sure. I'm comfortable with it because I've seen the necessity of some of the things in it. Having said that, I've also changed my mind on things that were discussed, how I felt at the last meeting. I mean, I reserve the right to change my mind when I want to, or when I find other information that indicates that I should. And one thing I will give administration credit for is very seriously listening to all of the concerns that were brought up at the last meeting and making changes that, in my view, reflected the feelings of people that were here. So, you know, there's a thing about every law restricts you. There's no such thing as a law that doesn't restrict on some definition of freedom somewhere. But that's why we have a Canadian criminal code that's not 5 paragraphs long. I don't really have any difficulty in it because there's nothing in here that I saw that would, how would I put it, handcuff any behavior that I wanted to do. When I'm taking into mind that my job is to represent the town of Peace River and to represent council and to be a representative of council. And I don't have any difficulty, I'm just voicing my opinion. I have no difficulty looking at it from that light. And I've seen in cases where there was nothing there, you had to battle out all of the circumstances all the way through it. And sometimes after you've been there, you can see the wisdom behind some stuff. So that's just my opinion, but I do appreciate the work that the administration did. I also want to say I really appreciate all of the comments that were made at the last meeting by the councilors here who, how would I call it, disagreed wonderfully. I mean, that's one of the nice things about being on council is you have differing opinions where you can go back and you can think about what was said. You can think about the points that were raised and you can consider the validity. And, yeah, so I'm happy.
Okay, any other discussion points? Councilor Boychuk.
Yes, you know, I think this is a very valuable and important document that we have that guides us. And one thing I think that's missing from this is guidance around people that wear maybe 1 or 2 hats in the community and how we're supposed to interact and overlap those responsibilities. You know, and I'm just looking at my situation here mostly is that and to ensure that I stay within a code of conduct. So I'm not sure how I would word it, but you know, I just have a little bit of worry around that, how we interact in 2 different roles sometimes.
Thank you. I'm having a little look here because I think that's in here. somebody could perhaps help me search through this a little bit. It's basically your council role as a representative of the whole community versus your particular interests. There is a part in here someplace that talks about you can declare your interests in a particular, I don't know, situation, group or something or other, but then you step into your council role where you're representing the entire community and base your decisions on that. And we did discuss last week differences and nuances around conflict of interest and pecuniary interest, but conflict of interest in particular, I think, which is in here as well. But you read this through and you find that in your particular situation with your interest in your outside group, that it isn't clear enough as to what you should do. Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Yeah, and along, I did mention it last time after the meeting there about the definition of what a counselor's role is, but yeah, I just couldn't find any clear guidance in there as far as that goes.
Thank you. Councillor Good.
My understanding, and this is just my understanding, is that prior to an issue or a position being taken by council, councilors are free to have and express any position publicly that they feel on virtually any issue. I mean, you don't, one of the reasons you're here as a councilor is to bring your experiences, bring the viewpoints that you have and have those discussions openly. Once council has made a decision, then you should reflect the will of council to the extent that to say you didn't agree with it, that's fair. I think to have a position on it, but as they put in here, not to continue the argument afterwards, because you're there now to speak on behalf of council. And I think just saying that if you belong to an organization or you have a passion that you're trying to achieve in society, if council hasn't taken a position on it, fill your boots, have a good time and speak your opinion. But just be clear when you're speaking your opinion and when you're talking about council, that you're not speaking for council, and just be clear in the differentiation of the time and the place. And just making a statement saying, I'm not speaking as a councilor, I'm not here as a councilor, I'm here as me on the passion that I believe in. I think you can really have a lot of freedom. So I don't see that, I don't really have a difficulty with it myself. It's after council makes a decision that it sometimes becomes difficult because inside you're going, that's wrong, that's not the way it should be, la da 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 da, and go down the road. And at that point you have to say, well, council's decision is this. So I don't see the discrepancy there. Once the decision is made by council, you talk about the decision made by council.
Yeah, I think perhaps, and Mr. Boychuk, correct me here. You're talking about, well, let's be frank. Mr. Boychuk is heavily involved in mental health task force issues, which means he talks to a lot of groups and a lot of people. And I think he's saying in this policy or this bylaw, he's not sure how he does his mental health task force stuff, which involves levels of government and talking to a whole wide variety of people versus them knowing that this is not a council thing that he's talking about. It's a community thing that he's talking about, and he happens to be a counselor. So,
yeah.
And I frankly, Mr. Boychuk, I think that at some point in time, you just have to keep reinforcing that you are, which foot you're standing on, your community role or your council role. And you declare your council issues or your council interests at times, and that's the best you can do. I don't know that you could write something down that's going to make that any better or clearer. Councillor Scanlon?
It's kind of in like section 6.3, and it's sort of not all in like what Counselor Wojciech is referring to, it's not all in the kind of one place or one paragraph, but if you went through, you could sort of collect all the things, like you just make sure that you say, you know, this is my opinion. Council does not have a position on this, you know, I'm not speaking for council. These are just, it's kind of more, a lot of things you just have to preface, pardon me, statements with, if they're in spoken or in writing, I suppose, which would get rather tedious after a time, I would imagine, if one is, you know, quite active, you know, on a thing, but.
And I guess I will say, the other, I think, purpose, and this is my thoughts, of a code of conduct is somehow to help counselors who are new to the municipal council world realize how they have to behave and how they have to represent themselves as being on council and going forward from there. So sometimes it's almost a learning thing. And you could say, yes, you get that in Uni 101, but Uni 101 doesn't help you when you're somebody saying, well, you're doing something you shouldn't do, and what to go forth from there. I appreciate in this one that the complaint process and all of that is much more defined than the previous one was, especially well, with respect to timeline and who investigates and all that stuff. It's, to my mind, having lived through some stuff, it's a little more clear. Councillor Stanaher?
Well, and when you mentioned the complaint process, it is a large part, like if you added up all the pages, I think the complaint process starts like what, halfway through, maybe a little bit more. And I would wonder if there's a number of code of conducts out there that just have that in a different document. So the appearance might be that their code of conduct is one length when perhaps there's other procedures in other documents.
Deputy Mayor?
Every document of the 31 that I checked out had the steps to take for all that.
Okay, so any further comments on this? Okay, so basically, we're going to vote on taking this to first hearing or first reading, and passes. Carry on discussion and talk about second reading. It fails. That means we're living with the document that we have. That's the way things go. So we have a motion on the floor, I believe.
I mean, oh,
I think
Yes.
Scamahorn made one, yeah. Okay, so we have a motion that council give first reading to bylaw number 2154, council code of conduct bylaw. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so that means that the bylaw is unchanged.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah,
may I make a motion?
okay.
I'd like to make a motion that administration revisit the code of conduct bylaw and present it possibly the first meeting of July with a maximum of 4 pages, as a lot of our other neighbors have.
Comments, Mr. Boychuk?
So by having a longer code of conduct, does that put us in danger of being more legal matters or tied up legally versus a smaller one?
Councillor Good?
Especially because we had a process in the previous code of conduct prior to the one that we have now. There was one prior to that. And a lot of the things that are being presented in the procedure of what to do when a complaint occurs came out of when they say, well, you should handle complaints properly. For example, let's have a 4-page bylaw, and we have half a page on process, we should handle the process properly. You immediately have lawyers involved on both sides arguing what is proper, where is proper, why is proper, who is proper, and who's gonna have what point of view. And we spent months and months and months, and lawyers and lawyers and lawyers. And one of the reasons that the process that we have is delineated as it is in this bylaw as being presented was because of the experience where we found out things that you could do and couldn't do that have been decided in law, but were not outlined in the process for code of conduct. And the problem is, gotta remember, the whole idea of the code of conduct, it used to be very, very simple. The code of conduct for a counselor up until maybe 5-10 years ago, I can't remember the exact date that they came up with the idea. Based on some, by the way, on bad behavior of counselors in certain areas, they decided everybody in the province needed the code of conduct was simple. You shall not act in any manner where you go against your pecuniary duty. That was it. That was your behavior. That was pretty much code of conduct. Follow the MGA and don't get involved in anything as pecuniary interest. End of story. Because there was no code of conduct in every municipality in Alberta. And what we have now is communities, yeah, a lot of them have 4 pages. They also haven't had them exercised. They haven't had the complaint process. They haven't gone through them. So my fear of putting an arbitrary limit on, well, why not make it 3 pages then? I mean, 4 is arbitrary, so is 3, so is 10, so is 12, so is 20. So putting a limit on it to achieve a size of a document has nothing to speak on the quality of the document. And I've been involved when there was a fairly good lengthy document that really didn't have the quality. So yeah, I see a real danger in shortening it to the point where it becomes basically don't act badly. End of story. Now you're gonna be litigating all the time. That's just my personal opinion based on experience.
Any other comments? Deputy Mayor?
I'm buzzing all over the place today. Did somebody do this on purpose?
You wanna come around and use my mic while you?
No, that's okay.
That's okay. Use Byron's.
Yeah, you can. I have no more cable, but you won't.
I guess I just want to say that, well, maybe, I'm not sure if 4 pages would be reasonable. But I would see, I can see having to include the items that we're mandatorily having to include. But I don't, there are sections here that I would like to see, I could just hold it, removed. So I'm not sure if 4 is reasonable or not, but I do know that, and I do agree, mate, that your complaint system has to be a little more detailed, but the rest of it doesn't have to be. Like I see that there's things, especially in social media, like that is a very bloated section. And I'm looking at some of the other ones that are not. Yeah, I do see that it could be shortened. I'm just not sure of how, or like you could, like, I don't think we have to include every single thing they suggested. It was like, you may do this, you may do that. So there's got to be maybe hopefully a happy medium here somewhere.
So I look at social media, are you maybe referring to 6.4? That one?
I didn't bring up my. I just, for instance, Grand Prairies has a social media, they just have 1 point on there. So like, not, our social media is very, it's almost confusing, what you're allowed to do, then you're not allowed, and then you're not supposed to talk about it, but yet you're allowed your personal opinion. Like, keep it simple is best, I think, for those things. I do understand about the complaint process, but other than that, I think there's a lot of room here for condensation.
So I'm looking at use of social media and I'm seeing 2 sections, which is half page. Sorry, Councillor Good. Councillor Good, did you have a?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I think,
Yeah, I did.
I can see sort of the intention of trying to simplify it. So let's talk about that. Maybe we could ask administration, and I'm not sure by next week, because I know administration has a few other things to do. They weren't sitting around hoping that we were gonna throw this back in their laps. But, and I think we all behave reasonably appropriately at most times, so I'm not too concerned about that, but I think it might be advisable to have council bring us back a potentially abbreviated code of conduct and see how they feel about that. I mean, something in that light, I would be comfortable with supporting, with the idea that maybe this is a lot of words. I don't know, because I'm not uncomfortable with it, but I don't have a problem with having a second look either. But I just find having an arbitrary limit really, really dangerous, because you're not gonna get there, I would sit there and say, I can't do that. And you'd say, well, why not? And I'll tell you why, and then, okay, it's 5 pages. I don't know, I think that would be a really difficult exercise.
Councillor Ford?
Yeah, we've gone through a few people here, but Councillor Boychuk, what was your question again that you had just asked?
Like a long time ago there about the two roles? Or the law of it being tied up?
About the length.
Yeah, just if it protects us better legally or hinders us legally, the length of the document and what we have in there.
So I found that, I don't know, ironic, because I asked the same question to the person I asked legally about this document, and their answer to me was simply yes.
Which is,
That, yeah, it's,
it protects you more having it there.
no, the opposite.
What was the question you asked them?
That same one that Mark just
Well, that
said.
wasn't, okay, there were two, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be obtuse, but there were two options in the question. Does it protect you or not? And the answer was yes.
Okay, so, CEO Miller.
I just wanted to say there can be danger in arbitrary or random legal opinions without having a true vetted and an opinion written on paper. So just be cautious, when we're just getting random legal advice. I do want to say, this document was drafted largely in part by our legal team based on the experience that they had going through the last code of conduct investigation. And then from there, Kayla had taken a few others and looked for municipal best practice. So that's all I just really wanted to say is when I do hear this I got legal opinion on this or that or this. There's a big difference between paying for legal opinion and someone just giving a quick and highlighted opinion.
Okay, and this one is gone from 25 pages to 20 pages. I already looked at that now. But I find this all very interesting. I think admin, if this motion passes, is going to also need clear direction as to what they could cut out of it. And that means right now, I heard social media is a paragraph here. Social media also is one of those things where counselors have had direction, discussion about how they could use it, how they could not use it. So this code of conduct does try to clarify some of those points, tries to clarify some of the points with respect to council representing or counselors representing council or representing themselves, which has also been something that's been talked about. And that's all it's trying to do is lay it out. But somebody over here had a comment, Deputy Mayor.
Another place is the provision that we have two places in there about gifts that could be simplified down to like one line. I want to see that donation thing taken out. I'd like to see that taken out. I've done a lot of thought and looked at that from a lot of different angles. And yeah, that doesn't have to be there. The rest of that one maybe could be shortened. I mean, even if it is condensed, but you know, still has the same message, I guess. I think it's way too wordy. I just don't think.
So how would you word that section?
I can look at a couple of the other documents I have and make a suggestion on that, but it was like don't accept gifts over so much, make sure that you donate them back to the town, whatever, like it was very, very, brief. There was, and if, you know, as long, and maybe a clause saying, if you do have a gift, I could bring it forward and be open and honest about it and go from there, like it shouldn't have to be that complicated. Thank you.
So, you raise a point there, not being that complicated. So if it's written down, people then know, do this or that if you're given gifts. Some councils also, we did in the past actually, have a limit on the value of the gift that could be accepted before it had to go back to the council to decide something. You know, all of that takes time. Like, here we go. Councillor Ford, Councillor Good.
Yeah, just to reiterate on that, I did relimit, it was either in this one or in the old one, but just as an example, we were at what golfing thing was that last year?
A staff event.
No, it wasn't a staff event.
Oh,
RCMP.
goods and
The
services.
RCMP, and just so happened, my name got drawn and I'm guessing the gift basket was valued at about $400. And I didn't even bother donating that back or bringing it back to the town and donating it. I gave it away to our staff that participated in the event right there. I didn't even go home with a coffee cup. But,
So you did that sort of thing, which is, I guess, good. The next person accepts that and then somebody disagrees with them doing that, or so Councillor Good.
One of the, when I was doing some research on the gifts, and which is one of the reasons that I have no problem with individuals giving gifts on their own as themselves to whatever, is that if the gift was being given in any way related to a counselor's duty and counselor's responsibility, it was declared. And then council could take a look at it. In other words, it was above board, it was transparent, it was open, everything's there for discussion. If a counselor is let's say the counselor for, I don't know, relating to wood in the wood industry, and they give a gift to the wood industry, in their role, the council gave them the role to be the person talking about the wood industry. Then I think the gift should come from council, not the individual, unless it's stated that I'm doing this individually, in which case that should be declared. Because in a lot of cases, when we're out as councillors I'll use the example of the wood industry again, if I'm the council representative on the wood industry board and I'm giving them a gift, I'm doing it as a representative of council. I'm not doing it as an individual. So that's where the clarification in my mind has to be, and that's why I like the one part that said if it was done, it has to be declared, then it's open, it's transparent, everybody can see what's going on. So I think maybe a little bit of look in that, because again, if a person on an individual basis wants to give some money to such and such, to Billy Bob and his band, I don't care, have at her. You, as an individual, do what you want, but when you're there representing council or you're in a position, not specifically as a counselor, and then I think there can be some limitations on it properly.
Councillor Boychuk, then Councillor Carr.
I'm a little concerned just about, like, if we put a set length, like if we look at our current one here, the first 4 pages of it are just definitions, right? And so we'd have to eliminate a lot of that, but you know, it's more about clarity and things being very obvious to avoid any conflict there. I'm a little more worried about, and it's a little convoluted in some of the sections here that I think we can tweak and shorten up, and even the format a little bit we can just change to make it a little bit shorter, but that's my thoughts on that there.
So I'm gonna ask, which sections would you say should be shortened, I guess?
Well, just looking at our social media, I see a lot of problems there that, you know, we might either need different clarification or wording around that. And I got a couple examples that we could use there, but
So that the section 6.4, 6.5 on social media, that one?
yes, correct. So it's just, you know, I don't want to set a certain page number, but I definitely would like to see it a little bit shorter.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Card, then Deputy Mayor.
We were all told a while ago that you're a counselors 7 days a week. You took the position, you're a counselor 7 days a week. So people keep saying, well, if you're not wearing your counselor hat or you are wearing your counselor hat. For example, when Councillor Ford did the riverbank cleanup, and it came down to actually taking care of something around the actual live encampment. Both Councillor Scammahorn and Councillor Ford stood back because they were counselors and they felt people would recognize them as counselors. So what this is saying is you are not allowed to do riverbank cleanup anymore unless council approves it. Councillor Shannon is not allowed to go visit other, developers that want to come to Peace River unless council approves it. Councillor Boychuk is not allowed to go see his ministers and deputy ministers about homeless and mental health unless council approves it. I mean, you talk about a cumbersome process. If council has to approve all of that, nothing is going to happen. I think what the guidelines need to be is be respectful, don't embarrass council or your town, and stay in your lane. I mean, that's pretty basic and it pretty much covers it all.
Councillor Good.
Except when it comes, and I think there's a differentiation to go out there and that, yeah, I think sometimes you could be self-limiting when you don't have to. But I think when there's something like, as you said, are we gonna tell a council they can't go and talk to somebody, a developer or whatever? Of course not. That's never been a question. That's never been a question here. It's never been a question that's been brought up to me as council. Can I go talk to a developer to try and get a developer to come to town? No. Giving gifts, well, that can be construed in a bunch of different ways. And the gifts are an area where there's enough sensitivity around it that there's rules on receiving gifts in a lot of communities because people are brought, you got that, you shouldn't have it. I mean, I've had people say, well, you shouldn't even get a dinner paid for. You know, we shouldn't be able to go somewhere somebody wants to give councilor dinner. Whoa, they're going to sell their soul for the hamburger or something like that. So, I mean, there are people who bring that up, and when you look at the other direction, and that's why there are rules on what you can accept. It can't be a certain amount that can look really, really bad. And I think in gifts, yeah, I think there are some areas. Nobody's saying you can't go talk to who you want. That's never been an issue, and there's never been a limitation in any code of conduct or bylaw that I've seen, because councillors are supposed to be out in the community talking to people. Like you see Councillor Ford's difficulty of, is council clearing out the embankment, which is where Councillor Ford made the decision yourself, if I'm correct, to say, hey, this is an area where I feel uncomfortable, I'm gonna pull myself back. Because he very clearly saw that he would be construed as council doing it. That's a pretty valid judgment, I think, on Councillor Ford's part. I don't think that's a, how would I call it, a criticism of our code of conduct.
Okay, any other new comments? Councillor Carr.
I did the same as Councillor Shannon. I went and looked up several different communities of their code of conducts. I think Northern Sunrise County is 3 pages. I think the town of Grimshaw is 6 pages. I think the Lesser Slave Lake, I believe, is 6 pages. I don't see why we can't follow the same. And as I say, be respectful, stay in your lane and don't embarrass the town or council. I mean, if it becomes too restrictive, it has as much negative effect as it is if it is not restrictive enough. And I think we have responsible enough people on this council that those that want to go and do something positive for the town, should not feel inhibited. And, quite frankly, I did when I finally got a chance to read the, code of conduct, last weekend.
I would suggest that, maybe the comment about, doing good for the town sort of thing, is a little off in terms of, I hate to say this, Councillor Carr, but others have done whatever they do in their personal life in a volunteer capacity that, is not recognized as we're talking about the riverbank stuff. It's not as public, I guess. Okay, so I think everybody's had their chance to say this.
One more suggestion, if I may.
Okay,
Maybe Councillor Carr and any councillors who wish, because we defeated the motion. We defeated the first.
we have another motion on our.
Right, which is the one that Brad put through, is, send the areas that you want to see dealt with to administration, have them take a look at it and have them respond to those areas of the areas you're talking about. So the administration, rather than be kind of nebulous, we want you to take a look at this, point it out, just send them an email. This is where I want you to take a look at it and have administration bring us back something. I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you. Okay, one more comment.
Sorry, it's not a comment. I had assumed that's what we were all going to do is put our thoughts on paper and send them to administration. It's a good way to do it.
Okay, if that is the situation, I would invite all councillors to do that, either agreeing or disagreeing with whatever sections, so that it's clear. Okay, we've got a motion on the books and, Ms. McRoberts, could you read the motion?
I've got, Councillor Carr moves that administration. That's what I've got. What's the rest
Revisit the code of conduct bylaw and return by the July GMP meeting. Oh, to a maximum of 4 pages. I gotta listen to the tape exactly.
We do not, the first meeting in July, I think you said, we don't have a
July,
GMP.
right, sorry. We have to pull it up off the tape, the exact wording, your worship.
Okay, so the gist of the motion is Councillor Carr requests administration to bring revised code of conduct to the first meeting in July and to a maximum of 4 pages. That encapsulate that.
That's accurate.
Okay. You've got the motion, so all of those in favor of the motion.
In favor.
Those opposed? Okay, all those opposed to the motion. It is carried. So at this point in time, we have the present code of conduct motion in front of us, and that is what we are using at this point in time. Okay, next up, CAO Miller with the fees and charges for 2024. And this is bylaw 2155.
Thank you, motion. Just gotta find my place here. Okay, we just have a slight amendment or two to the fees and charges bylaw. So this bylaw was brought forward and adopted in February of this year. But we do have a new fee that we need to, we're seeking adjustment to. And, sorry, I'm all mixed up here, 96. Got my pages mixed up.
Schedule D.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Okay, so one in particular, yes, Schedule D, it is the criminal record check fee that was introduced. There was an oversight on our part to have a reduced fee for volunteers when we brought the bylaw forward. So we have a suggestion of $10 per criminal record check for volunteers with the provision that a signed letter from the organization outlining the need for that criminal record check to be done for that volunteer. So we have been charging $10 this past month. We've been just covering it through a small allowance that I have in our FCSS funding, but we would like to make it formalized at $10. And I believe there was something else we have to correct here too, I believe. I think there was some number in there. Typographical, sorry. So under the museum, that's right. There was under the museum section in Schedule B, it says $5. It should be, I think it should be $5 per hour for, it's on page 5 of the bylaw for 30 minutes. So it's $5 per hour after the first 30 minutes. And then, under the pool rental on page 12, there was a typographical error there as well. It shows an hour and a half of pool rental prime time as $3,800 and it should be $380. And then on engineering and infrastructure, Schedule C, we were charging a fee for a discretionary fee being applied for signage and home occupation, and we're asking that that be removed against that as well. So if I could do it again, page 5 of the bylaw, and you should see it all redlined. So page 5 of the bylaw changes the museum services fee, adds the word hour. Page 15 of the bylaw. Just adds the wording does not apply to sign or home occupation applications. Page 17 of the bylaw, under protective services is the criminal record check volunteer fee for $10. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions on this one? Councilor Ford?
First of all, CEO Miller, thank you very much for bringing this back. I am perfectly fine with the bylaw, with the exception under Schedule D, the criminal record check for volunteer. I'd like to see that remain at 0. Our not-for-profit organizations are having a heck of a time as it is right now. Even with the $10 fee, I'd like to see that go back to 0. And then I'd like to see the wording right below that, must have a signed letter from the not-for-profit. I'd like to see the word registered not-for-profit be added. Other than that, I'm fine with it.
Can I ask why registered?
Because under a registered not-for-profit, you actually have to submit to the province your financials on a yearly basis to show that you're a not-for-profit in good standing. If you do not do that, then you're actually struck from being a not-for-profit or a registered not-for-profit.
So if somebody's volunteering and they're not a registered not-for-profit, they would end up paying the $25?
Well, isn't most of your registered not-for-profits, are they, unless I'm wrong, are they like any of the sporting groups that I know of, they're all registered, whether you're swim club, football, hockey, they're all registered, and you have to have your criminal records check in order to coach or ref. You also in that criminal record check, I'd like to see that also read like your CPEC check, which is your criminal record / vulnerable sector check, because there are two different things on the form.
Counselors, other comments? Counselor Good?
Sort of two questions. What percentage of our requests for a criminal record check are from nonprofits as a percentage of, let's say, well, as a percentage? Simple. That's the first question.
Through your worship, I'm not sure, we don't have that data yet, so we're gathering that data to
Okay,
understand better.
okay, and to Councillor Ford's question, about not for profits. There's the Societies Act, and a society by definition is not always not for profit, my understanding, it could be wrong on that. But again, I think there's a differentiation between a not-for-profit, a corporation. How would I put it? A corporation being run as a non-for-profit, which doesn't qualify for certain things that other nonprofits do. And so there's some delineations in there and so I think there has to be some clarifications on that. And I also have a thing I'd like to comment under animal control piece after. And by the way, I'm fine with nonprofits, like volunteer associations and that, who need it not being charged. I don't really have a difficulty with that, as long as we understand the budget implications.
Counselor Ford?
Yeah, just, this might help clarify then. So for instance, if you're volunteering at the soup kitchen, would they be considered a registered not-for-profit, or are you just volunteering for an organization? That comes from your comment.
They're a registered non-profit.
They're registered?
You can get CRA receipts from them, so to do that, I think you have to be registered. Anything else? Sorry.
No, sorry, worship, I was gonna say, I don't have enough information to know if, for example, Peace River Minor Hockey is registered or not. I know they have to take volunteers in order to operate, but I honestly don't know if they're registered or not.
My main concern was that formality being abused. So if, for instance, if you're volunteering for the hockey, for Peace River Minor Hockey, and they're not a registered not-for-profit, then I'm fine with removing that word.
I was just trying to search, but.
Let's go to the animal one and come back to this one. Counselor Good.
Just were a bit not clear to me, each spade,
Where are you?
page 19 out of 20. Animal control fees by law 1832 to be reviewed and updated, but it says that it's 50 for an unspayed, non-spayed dog and cat. Annual renewal is $50, but I can get a lifetime license for $100. Yeah, that's what it said, lifetime license. It doesn't specify what the lifetime license is for, unless it's for the non-spayed animal or whatever. So if I'm gonna pay $50 a year, or I can pay $100 the first year and I don't have to spay my dog or cat. I'm not sure that's the intent of where you're going with that ruling. So, and it's nice to see that hens and pigeons are being treated equally. Sorry, that's.
So-
that
so-
just made me laugh.
So it would make better sense, lifetime license for non-spayed dog and cat, $100.
No, I'd say
That would be
spayed
up
or
to you.
neutered,
Spayed,
or neutered, your
okay.
worship.
Okay, so,
But if they're spayed or neutered, each spayed and dog and cat is a $40 lifetime license, because it's $40 in the first year. So you don't have to do it the second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year.
What?
it says annual
Oh, there's an
renewal.
annual renewal of 20, okay.
Yes.
So 40, 60, or a lifetime license for 100,
Mhm.
that's cool. But I think you might want to move the non-spayed out of there unless you want to give them the non-spayed dogs and cats $100 and they're clear to go.
No.
So the lifetime license should be for spayed and neutered.
Yeah.
Animals. That should be in there, okay. And number two should stay as is or change? in there,
I think,
$50.
your worship, I think we want to keep two, because for example, the vet won't even take our new puppy until she's 1 year or close to one. I thought it was 6 months. The vet won't take her till she's almost a year. But we would definitely want to get rid of number 4. Oh, non-spade, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, each spade and, oh no, forget I even said that. Sorry, I'm reading, I'm confusing myself.
Number 5, you want them.
We want to add spade or neuter to number 5, right? The words?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so we've done that now. So back to, Schedule D, page 17, the discussion on criminal, record check, vulnerable record checker, however it's phrased. What are we doing here?
do you have any suggestions?
So there is a difference between a registered charity and a not-for-profit organization.
Mhm.
So registered charities, charitable organizations, public foundations, private foundations that are created and resident in Canada, they must use the resources for charitable activities and charitable purposes, following one or more categories. So things like the relief of poverty, advancement of education, advancement of religion, so other purposes that benefit the community. Not-for-profit organizations on the other side, they're clubs, societies that are not charities and are organized and operated exclusively for social welfare, civic improvement, pleasure, recreation, or other purposes except profit. So that would include social, recreational, hobby groups, certain amateur sports, and certain festival organizations. So I think putting the word registered in there is kind of muddying the waters a little bit. If the intention is to open it up for both charities and not-for-profit groups, then you wouldn't want to put registered in there because the two groups are mutually exclusive.
Like, I know your registered societies, that's like where the mayor was speaking, they can actually issue you a tax receipt. So for instance, Peace Fest, back in the day, it was a registered not-for-profit, which could not issue you a tax receipt. But there's other groups out there as well. Like, I have no problem. I totally hear where you're coming from. I have no problem taking that registered name out of there. But you also have groups that take volunteers that actually don't, I'm not sure if they're not for profit or not, but they don't even ask you for, like, if you're doing security at a seniors hockey game, they don't, I've never heard of them asking for a CPAC check before.
Mr. Boychuk?
I know when we first publicized that we were going to charge for the criminal's record check, there was a lot of concern from our not-for-profits in our community and how that would hinder their volunteer base. And I was wondering if we could maybe use some slippage or carryover from our groups from grants every year to maybe make a small budget to help some of these. So if we had $100 in there, that helped 10, we had 1,000, that help 100 volunteers go through that and still support our volunteers in our community and our not-for-profits and organizations.
I think that just adds a layer. I hate to use the phrase red tape to the thing. Because then they have to be reporting to somebody that they have these many volunteers, then go and get it and somebody reimburses the group somehow, wouldn't that? Yeah, Councilor Ford.
Yeah, I tend to agree with your, your worship in regards to that statement, because if you take the $10 fee out of there for the not-for-profit, then we don't have to, even look at, the council grants to groups for subsidizing that $10 fee when that fee would no longer be existent.
Councilor Good.
Just to buy the first question is what percentage of our applicants for criminal record checks and that are from not-for-profits? Because if it's 90% or 95%, I'm tossing a number I just pulled right off the ground here. Why even have the rule? Just make it 0 for everybody, because the paperwork is going to cause you more problem than doing it. If it's 10% are volunteers and 90% are businesses that are not paying for a service that the town is providing, or organizations that are profit-based, that are now getting a free service from the town of Peace River. We can argue whether that's a good or a bad thing, but part of the whole purpose was that the criminal record checks were impacting the town's time and the town administration, if I'm correct, and that was what was brought to us. So I think that that's a valid point, but I don't think we can make that decision without knowing a ballpark of what we're talking about. So maybe we should, I hate for this as a suggestion, not a motion. Maybe we should table this until we get that and bring it back at the next meeting, bring it back after we get that number.
CAO Miller and then Councillor Scanlon.
Your worship, our feeling is we're not gonna get a good feeling of the number of volunteer requests until September, when most of the sporting groups start up again. Because I'm guessing or assuming that the soccer and the ball volunteers have already done their criminal checks. And then again, it won't be until the school and all the organizations start in September that we'll get a really good sense of how many volunteer checks we'll get.
Right, Councillor Scanlon.
Yeah, I agree with having the fee in that, one of the changes. So for example, for my work as a school teacher, every, I forget what the number is, 5 years or whatever. The province requires us to get them, which is fine, but that's the province making a rule that the town is now paying for every, you know, school teacher in towns, right? So I think it's, you know, just another example of, we'll call it provincial downloading. And so this is something that when I go to do this next time, I would have to pay for, and then I would submit and get reimbursed from the school division for that expense. That would be what I think is appropriate to happen. And then that way, town administration time is also not being used up by somebody else's rule that we don't have any impact over. And the other side to that is, so as a hunter education instructor, I'm supposed to provide a criminal record check every once in a while as well. And that's a volunteer situation. Can I use the same criminal record check for one thing as the other? Like, once I have one, do I just send it off to everybody that needs one? So I guess on one hand, it's like, well, I'll just go and say I'm volunteering over here, and then, you know, get it over there. So I can see where Councillor Ford's concern was in that other suggestion. So it's having it, I can see how having it two-tiered is complicated.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, so what are we doing with this criminal record check? I'm losing track.
That's your motion, did you?
Well, no, it's
Like, I'm almost, I don't know, maybe split it in the middle and charge everybody, or, and that way it's just one thing. Either you know, you do your, that's for simplicity's sake. I'm not saying it's necessarily the best in all regards, so don't get me wrong there. Honestly, the best thing was during COVID, you could apply for them online, because they were trying to discourage people from coming in and infecting everybody, I guess. So that was the only time at the Baptist Church we had all of our volunteers actually accurately accounted for with all their criminal record checks, was when they could be done online. But it's onerous enough to have to go in there twice. Like, my wife can't even pick mine up for me. It has to be me that goes in and gets it, which, you know, I can see reasons for that, but it's onerous to begin with. And the biggest limitation, I would say, is not even the $10. It's the fact that you have to go in there and get it, and then go in there and pick it up again. And for a lot of people, that's just, they forget to do it. It's not on their regular list of things that they take care of. And yeah, the biggest reason why you wouldn't have it done is that it wouldn't be the $10.
okay, Councillor Ford.
Yeah, just one question. So how much, this would be for CAO Miller, how much work would it be for administration at the detachment to accept a letter from a volunteer that's not for profit and not charge anything, compared to if you are going there because I need one for work and I'm not a volunteer and pay the $25? How much work is that? the difference between the two? Very much? If any?
No, I'm sorry. If I understand, it's the same. It's just you either pay $25 or you have a letter. And if you have a letter, they're providing it for free, or $10 at the moment. They would switch it to free if that's the motion that's given.
Provided they don't have to go and check someplace about the non-for-profit status.
Right. So it'd have to be on letterhead.
Council Carr,
I'd like to see it zero for not-for-profit organizations and volunteers, simply because of exactly what Councillor Ford said. They're having enough trouble getting volunteers that I think we need to do what we can. I do agree with what Councillor Scamahorn said, there's more cumbersome people up there. But I mean, why would you charge people that are already volunteering their time?
I'll speak that, if as a town, we also are at the point that we're representing the town, and if it's a cost to the town at some point, then we're got that on our back too.
I'll make one more comment, please.
Okay, Councillor Carr.
One other thing that we have to consider is we do the criminal record checks for Grimshaw and surrounding area as well. So we're taking money from their volunteers.
So is that an argument for or against? I'm good, I'm good with zero, honestly, I really am good with zero. It's just, I can see why when we're doing criminal record checks out of here for a catchment area of 12,000 people, it's a lot. It's a lot of administrative burden that we are supporting. Maybe we should put this in our ICF agreements.
So I just want to clarify something here. These fees, they apply to anybody that walks into the detachment, no matter where they live.
They will only do a criminal record check for our service area, the RCMP service area.
The RCMP
Correct.
service area,
Correct,
so their regional service area.
correct.
So we have, as Mr. Carr has suggested then, any volunteer in the RCMP service area can walk into the detachment, no longer pay a fee, thank you, Peace River.
Same as they used to do 2 years ago.
I know, but thank you, Peace River. It is. Okay, so I would be interested, once the data starts to pile up, just to know. Because we'd also want to know who lives in Peace River and who doesn't. Because then we want to maybe say something about that in this policy. Because our taxpayers are basically paying for this, so. Okay, any further comment, and then we're gonna vote. Councillor Shannon, or Deputy Mayor Shannon.
I would just like to express my support for Councillor Carr and Councillor Ford's sentiments on having that number at zero. I too would rather the volunteers not have to pay additional money for that.
Okay, I think we would all like to have people not pay for things. So the motion is do we have a motion yet? Well, let's see here.
No motion yet.
No.
Okay, so we need to move to first reading. And just to clarify, that criminal record check, the vulnerable sector check is in there or not? Because that's two item thing and double the cost to produce.
So the vulnerable sector check is a box that you check off on the CPEC check. So it's part of the same criminal records check. It's just that with that vulnerable sector check, they do a little bit more in depth.
Mhm.
And if my memory is correct, let's say you have the same birthday as somebody who is flagged in there is extra charges that you end up having to cover because you gotta get fingerprinted and a whole bunch of other stuff that's not done, if my memory is correct, free. So, the vulnerable sector check is different, so it's not the same thing, just the check mark, it's one thing with an additional thing on top of it that can get
think you have to pay for that.
Oh, my memory is. there
So if
was
someone's
two
got a
of them.
criminal record that has your same name and birthday kind of thing, and they gotta dig a little deeper?
Same birth date, cues into this other step.
Yeah, and just to reiterate on that, not mentioning any names, of course, but I know an individual that has a 200% clean record, and their CPAC vulnerable sector check came back with a hit because of exactly what you said. So that person went in and got printed. They deemed it wasn't that person, but there was no extra fee, so that I'm aware of.
Well, well, I went through this, so I know what happened. And the thing was, I was told you should keep your copy of your fingerprints because we may accept them next time you bring them in, but we may not.
Yeah.
And you may end up having to pay for them again because there's a service for the fingerprinting. So been down the road, been there, done that, and it's not as simple as people think it is. And there are other things I could bring up where it gets nasty in there too, but
I find that weird because I've been printed.
Okay. So, would someone be prepared to, bring forth a motion about first reading perhaps? Counselor Ford.
Thank you, Your Worship. I put a motion on the floor to move that council give first reading to bylaw 2155, fees and charges bylaw for 2024 as amended.
what are those amendments?
The amendments would be for the not-for-profit at 0
Well,
and the $0, and the amendments that animal control, that were made under animal control.
I need to clarify here, thank you, Counselor, but, so I'm reading background. Administration recommends adopting a new bylaw as opposed to an amending bylaw for clarity and to keep all current fees for 2024 and so on. So the motion is correct.
Yes, you
Okay.
said 2155, that's the new bylaw number.
Okay.
I believe
He definitely, I'm sure, put that in there.
Yep.
Okay, so all those in favor of that
I thought it
motion?
was 20 to
The motion is
55.
2155 as amended.
Yeah, it is, yes.
Mhm. Yes, as amended.
All good.
Yes, I did.
Counselor Boychuk, did you vote?
Well, I'm in favor, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so that's first reading. So, with all of that, would someone care to move to give second reading? Counselor Good.
So moved.
Okay, Counselor Good moves that council give second reading to bylaw number 2155. Do I have to say as amended or not?
Fees and charges bylaw for 2024 as amended.
No, because,
You already amended.
you already
it.
amended it in first reading.
So we're good? Okay, all those in favor of that motion?
I'm in favor.
I move we proceed to third reading.
Thank you. We proceed to third reading for bylaw number 2155. Thank you. All those in favor?
In favor.
It is carried. Anybody want to place another motion on the books?
Yes, Your Worship, I put a motion on the floor that council give third reading to bylaw 2155, fees and charges for 2024.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor?
In favor.
It is carried. Thank you. Okay, I think we're gonna try and finish off the bylaws and then I think we'll have a meeting break. So we've got bylaw 2156, the cemetery bylaw, and Mr. Fisher is going to lead us through this one.
Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. This one's hopefully a little bit more straightforward. It's mostly cleanup. We did a pretty substantial rewrite in 2022 as administration on the cemetery bylaw. And then when we had the signed version, there's a bunch of numbering errors in the document that was signed. And it's resulted in some referencing issues. So it's really challenging to reference, and there's a couple of errors that have come out of that. So
attached to the report is just a cleaned up version of the bylaw. That has all of the proper numbering this time. So, I would ask that you would consider giving first, second, third reading this evening to clean up our previous administrative mistake. Or if you are not so inclined to give it all three, pass a first reading and then we'll bring it back later.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Does anybody have any questions on the matter? Would someone like to present a motion?
Will council give first reading to bylaw number 2156, the cemetery bylaw?
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
I'm in favor.
Great, it's carried. One want to go to second motion or second reading? Councilor Good.
I'll move second reading.
Of bylaw number 2156, thank you. All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
In favor.
Great, it's carried. Anybody want to move for placement of third reading, Deputy Mayor?
I move that we have the first reading of bylaw number 2156.
Move to go to third reading.
Move to go to third reading, yes.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of that motion?
I'm in favor.
Great. Anybody want to present another motion who hasn't maybe done one?
Put a motion on the floor, your worship, that council give third reading to bylaw 2156, the cemetery bylaw.
Okay, any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
In favor.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Fisher. Okay, so I think we're now going to take a 5-minute break, so that gets us back here at 6:39. And you can review the red plan during that. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the unfinished business, which is the first item, MD of Peace Master Recreation Plan. And CAO Miller, you wish to speak to this one?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. So this is just coming back for council's input regarding the MD of Peace's Recreation Master Plan. It was put on the agenda April 22nd for council to review and give any feedback for me to provide back to the CAO of the MD of Peace. So if there's any comments, thank you.
Councillors? So I did have quite a good look at it. I thought it was very thorough, and it actually had information that the town is likely to be able to use either for tourism purposes or other purposes. But it referred to ICS, the land use framework, and they're in the Upper Peace side. Peace River doesn't know which side we're in, Upper or Lower Peace, I think, but we're in the middle. I thought it was interesting. They did compare recreation areas in Berwyn, Grimshaw, and Peace River, and they looked at where their particular residents felt that they used the most recreation facilities or the types of recreation facilities. So I thought it was a very good report. I do know, or did note on page 228, 229, indoor rec facilities, they could add pickleball to the Baytech Center, since I think maybe that came into being more since the report was, the data was collected, put it that way. But anybody else notice anything they wish to bring forth? Other than that, we could accept this for brief, or for information. Sounds good?
No, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Sort of. No, I'm fine with it.
It's good.
Well, they talk about funding and they talk about everything. It's pretty thorough. So, and it has their go forward possibly for several years into the future. And I do note that Shaftesbury and Strong Creek Park feature kind of big in what they're intending to do in the next few years. So that's good. Okay, would someone be prepared to put forth a motion to accept this for information? Councillor Carr moves the council accept the briefing note regarding the MD of Peace Recreation Master Plan for information. Any further discussion? All those in favor of that motion?
In favor.
Great, it is carried, and I'd say thank you to the MD of Peace for doing that too. Okay, next up, we have the CAO 2024 first quarter report. Mrs. Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. So for the first quarter of 2024, just to start with, looking back at the items that were listed or reported or deemed top priority for Q1 in my end of year report, that was the union negotiations, which I believe the union is looking at the agreement and should be ratifying or have a ratification vote this week. Recruitment efforts were to be on Director of Protective Services and Communications Coordinator. So we were successful in our communications coordinator with Stuart joining us, and we are actually going through interviews this week for the Director of Protective Services. Our website development project is well underway. The team that's working on it have looked at and decided upon a site map for the website. And the contractors are working on the homepage and building the new site, while our team is working on updating the content for the site. We just talked about the council code of conduct bylaw, and next on our review is the council procedural bylaw, which we've started work on. And then we are also introducing or going to be distributing a community update, so 2023 reflections, and looking forward to what is on our agenda for the next year. We'd like to have that distributed by the end of May, early part of June for the residents. Activities, on governance, we did spend some time, going over land use bylaw with council. We had a couple of education sessions on that. As you're aware, council, we are undergoing a refresh on our land use bylaw. So it's important that, we ensure council understands the bylaw, the value and importance of it, the regulations and whatnot before we start going out to members of the public and seeking some engagement on that. We are still undergoing the utility rate model. I have had an opportunity to review the draft. I had a couple of questions and we've sent that back to the consultants for some revision. And I have now seen a new version come in and we anticipate presenting that to council for consideration and ability then to put it out in the public for engagement before the end of June. And then it will go out for engagement over the summer with the intention of it coming back for adoption in September and then get built into our 2025 to 28 budgets. And we'll also establish the 2025 utility rates. In March, Corporate Services did present the budget process timeline for 2024. And right now they are getting ready to prepare the property tax bills. Once that is over and they're distributed, then we'll really get working on the budget for over the summer. Bylaws and policies that were reviewed, we revised the business grant policy program, deaccessioning, I think it is, the collections policy for the museum. The bylaw was brought forward for the assessment on designated manufactured homes in a manufactured home community that was defeated. Bylaw for fees and charges, which was just amended. And a new one introduced actually, and then first reading for the camping bylaw was brought forward in Q1. For advocacy efforts, there was attention given to the Peace River Regional Women's Shelter Emergency Funding request, and letters were sent to Minister Turton. Letters were sent to Minister McIver, Minister Ellis regarding opportunity to meet with them during the AM conference. And digital information was sent for our lobbying efforts. Letters to Minister Williams, MP Viersen regarding Cold Shot's request for financial assistance. And then letters sent to Minister Ellison appreciation for funding award to Sagatawa for the PRCC transportation funding grant that was given to them. For training and conferences, I attended a Building Resiliency to Multi-Year Drought in Alberta seminar that was hosted by Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance. I attended Emerging Trends in Municipal Law, which is hosted annually and just provides updates on items, current issues that impact municipalities. I attended READY. It was an economic development conference in high level that focused on entrepreneurship and 10 specific business cases that were identified as viable for our region. Community building and promoting public confidence. We had council open house at the museum on March 7th. It was dreadfully attended. So we are going to work to come up with some new ideas to try to get some engagement with the public. So look for some new stuff this summer. I attended land use bylaw. We had a lunch and learn that was hosted by the chamber, and Alicia Moody, our planning and development manager, put on a session for the chamber members, and we're going to be branching that out to try to again educate the community on our land use bylaw. So we will be doing some planning to build a garage kind of sessions, information, and invite those who would like to learn a bit more about the process to get a development permit. And then for relationship building, was participant in the all council regional meeting. We had our town winter event. I went to the Davis Awards. We had our second annual senior leadership team Valentine's breakfast where we cooked for all of staff. I participated in the Peace Region Emergency Management Partnership Group. We're still forming that group amongst ourselves. Continued monthly meetings with the RCMP and active participant in economic development. So there I have a little picture for you of the All Councils regional meeting. Our town winter event was actually our Christmas party. For various reasons, we weren't able to have it before or in December, so it did get bumped to January. And we had some really positive comments about shifting it to the new year, so we'll see what 2024/5 party brings. In communications, their efforts were largely around wildfire season. They did have a practice evacuation, which they helped communicate. The fire department did practice evacuation in Lower West Peace. Oh, sorry. What else? We talked about the communications around the criminal record checks and the concerns about the volunteer fee, and communications really helped get that message back to us as well as address the message back to the residents to ensure that the concern was lessened. And then also on river ice, of course, the ice came through the river in Q1. So there was messaging about safety on the ice. And then again, we introduced or welcomed Stuart to the team. So he's been taking over a big part of the communication since then. And on emergency management, the development of the Regional Emergency Management Program continues to evolve. Currently, we're naming ourselves Peace Regional Emergency Management Partnership, or PREM. We've met a couple of times in Q1. Our first focus was on identifying the staff and the levels of training that each staff member have within our municipalities. We are blessed in our region actually to have 2 highly trained staff members that sit on Alberta Task Force 1, I think it is, Alberta Task Force 1. And they're also instructors of the Alberta Management Agency courses. So we have hosted Incident Command System 100, they hosted a 200, and then, or they hosted and taught, and then we hosted a ICS 300 training here in Q1 as well, but that was taught by our field officers from AEMA. So the goal is that we get all of our staff members in all municipalities trained to a minimum 200. And so it'll just give us some depth in response amongst ourselves. We've been reviewing our municipal emergency plan on a monthly basis, as you heard last week or during the agency or advisory committee meeting we held, the emergency advisory committee. And we've added updates to those, to the risks and to the response. On economic development, we worked on the investment attraction strategy with Ballard Group. They presented to the steering committee the final draft, and that should be coming to council shortly for presentation. The Rural Renewal Stream program continues to progress, and there have been some changes in that program, though, that may limit some of the applicants' eligibility. Business grant program policy was amended to improve clarity, and intake was February 26th to March 25th, and there was some awards announced last week. And then the Davis Awards, as part of the Davis Awards, the Chamber, the Economic Development Committee has created a new award for Economic Development Committee Ambassador Award. And this year it was given to Laverne Construction. And then finally with ECDEV, as mentioned previously, we applied for the Northern Rural Economic Development NRED grant, it's called, for $200,000 for wayfinding signage, which we were successful in. And finally, we are recruiting for our business retention specialist. So hopefully we will have some news in that regard within the next month. Looking ahead to Q2, as I mentioned, union negotiations, we were in negotiations in the early part of Q2. We're hoping to see ratification of our agreement. Recruitment continues for the Director of Protective Services and the Business Retention Specialist. Website development continues. That is probably another 10 to 12 week project. Council Code of Conduct Bylaw, as you see, we'll be revisiting that. Council Procedural Bylaw will be brought forward. And our community update, Stuart is working on with the team, and then my mandate letter. Is that, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Sorry, worship. And then, I'm not gonna speak to it, but if there's any questions, everybody would have gotten the action tracker, council motion action tracker. It should be updated. But if there's any particular things to speak to, or questions on.
Other than bigger font, I'm not sure, but anyways, so there's lots of them that are still active. Once the act is done, they're closed or they remain active forever. Okay,
At least not forever.
okay, thank you. Okay, so councillors, any questions? Maybe CAO's briefing note? Councillor Carr?
On the changes on the rural renewal stream, were those provincial changes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? Then perhaps someone would move that council accept the CAO 2024 first quarter report for information. Councillor Carr so moves. Any further questions? Comments? Okay, all those in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Okay, next up, new business, council remuneration review committee terms of reference with Mr. Mugford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have before you a draft of terms of reference for the Council Remuneration Review Committee. So the existing council remuneration, travel and expense policy requires that a committee be formed to review and make recommendations on revisions. The terms of reference for the committee have been drafted and are before council for your approval. So within the existing policy, section 9.1 requires that a review of the policy be performed in the year prior to an election. The review is to be completed by an independent ad hoc task force comprised only of public at-large members. So by June 1st in year 3 of the term, council will appoint an independent ad hoc task force comprised only of public at-large members as defined within the terms of reference to undergo a council remuneration travel expense policy review. The chair of the task force shall present the report findings and recommendations on honoraria and benefits to council for information and discussion on or before the October GNP meeting. And to allow time for public consultation, the council shall vote to accept, modify, or reject recommendations received at the last regular meeting of council in November, with any changes coming into effect at the post-election organization meeting. So the options before council, and I've attached a draft of the terms of reference, and I'll walk through them. The options before council are to approve the terms of reference for the council remuneration review committee as presented, or as amended by council. So the advantages are to support compliance with council remuneration, travel and expense policy, establish clear terms for the committee, and it's a transparent and apolitical means of reviewing council's remuneration. There's no disadvantages. Option 2 would be for council to decline to approve terms of reference, which would not support compliance with the existing policy. So the recommendation before council is to approve the terms of reference for the council remuneration review committee as presented. And just to walk through that document, a few highlights. So the committee is proposed to be comprised of 3 members, public. So will be selected from the community at large based on demonstrated interest, academic or technical knowledge, availability, work or volunteer experience, knowledge, and professional experience. Members must be a ratepayer of the town of Peace River. Committee will then elect a chairperson at their first meeting. The members of the committee will be appointed by council, and if a member resigns or is unable to serve, a replacement may be appointed from the original list of applicants. And I won't read through the whole document. If council has questions, I can speak to them specifically, but really the intention is that these are the terms of reference for which the committee will be formed, and kind of outline what their responsibilities and duties are. Also, I'll point out that as a liaison, the manager of employee services or their designate shall attend committee meetings to act in an advisory capacity as a non-voting member, and the director of corporate services shall provide administrative support to the committee. And the committee's terms of reference shall also be reviewed in the year preceding general election to ensure that they reflect the current mandate of the committee. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions. Thank you.
So this was part of the remuneration policy that council passed.
Correct.
In the past.
Yeah, the most recent policy established the creation of this temporary committee as a mechanism to then independently review and make recommendations for council. So that, it's arm's length from council making those decisions independently.
And several councils across the province they operate by this mechanism, I understand too.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, questions, Councillor Good.
Just one clarification on the definition of ratepayer compared to citizen, to adult citizen or whatever. Are all citizens of the town considered by definition ratepayers?
Yes.
No,
Okay, so if you live in an apartment, is that,
that's, well, I'm trying to include people, not
Right.
exclude them.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that definition does not exclude people who pretend, for example, do not pay property tax or in fact, don't pay a rate.
So I don't have a list of definitions within the terms of reference.
Yeah,
My understanding was the intention behind using ratepayer was to be inclusive. So if you have a business, or if you are a resident here and you own property, if you're renting and you reside here, trying to expand it so that it represents, the public at large within the municipality. We don't want, the intention isn't to have, people from outside the municipality that don't reside here in the
I
business. here.
fully agree with the intent. I just have a question on the word. I could be going down a path that's not quite correct. I'm just not sure. The second part, second comment I have is, are we just dealing with the first part right now, am I correct? Or are we dealing with the whole? Sorry. Okay, all of it. On duties and powers, you have in section 4.4, I wouldn't mind saying 4.4 split into 4.4 and 4.5, which is, and I'll explain my reasoning why. The committee will review relevant data and practices on other comparable markets, which I think is a great idea. And the committee may conduct other reviews as necessary. And then in the report, the section on what the report may include, but is not limited to, but it means it cannot include anything it wishes to not include. I would like to see the comparative from other communities included for transparency, so that the public, when they read the report, can say, are we in the ballpark, or are we totally off the wall here? In either direction. So I think having the report saying if they're going to include the reports from the Alberta Munis, et cetera, those should be considered even as an appendix, but they should be included in the report. So split 4.4 to 4.4 to 4.5 for the two sections, and have it at a minimum 4.4 as part of the report. Those are my only real two comments at this point.
Mr. Mumford, are you clear on, on the suggestion?
Yeah, so basically dividing that into two paragraphs and having language in there that basically would require that the information that is reviewed be included as an appendix.
Yes.
So that council has that information.
And the public can compare it, well, and check into that one. Should be fine.
Okay, other comments? Mr. Boychuk, any comments? Maybe not at this time. So the intent is that the people are on this committee are connected to Peace River in ratepayer kind of ways, be it living here, be it paying taxes here, something like that.
Yep, that's the intention. We've already advertised to try and drum up some interest, and we've had several members of the public express interest, so we've requested some additional information from them. And we'll then review that and put together the list of recommendations for council to come back to the next regular meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Would someone care to put forth a motion on this matter? Counselor, good.
I'll move the council approve the terms of reference for the community council remuneration review committee as presented, taking into consideration the two amendments or the two considerations that were brought up.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
In favor.
It is carried. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mumford, and sitting in the same chair, now the first quarter variance report for 2024.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, apologies for the delay on this. Normally, we try and include it as part of our package at the GNP meeting. With the year-end audits being close to the end of April as it was, we didn't quite get this out in time. We wanted to have a bit more time to go through it and make sure that as many of the adjustments for Q1 are captured and reflected in the numbers. Again, I'd highlight that these figures are unaudited, and as we get further into the year, we provide more detailed variance analysis and forecast revisions, which will be included in subsequent quarters presentations. So at the end of Q1, the tax supported operation showed a positive variance over budget of $490,000. Legislative service expenses are below budget with variances in supplies and training. Admin service expenses are largely trending towards budget and is slightly underspent in supplies and materials. Fire protection is trending towards budget, while bylaw is significantly under due to vacancies in the CPO and director positions. Public works is approximately $260,000 underspent at Q1. This is primarily due to lower supplies and materials. Engineering is slightly up due to higher contracted services. Economic development is lagging budget due to the timing of the grants to groups payments. So we spread that budget over the whole year, but the payments get out as they're approved by council. Planning development lags budget due to lower contracted services. Recreation overall is slightly under budget. Utilities on the whole are exceeding budgets, offset slightly by lower wages and supplies. Pretty much across the board, utilities are up. Even though we did factor into our 2024 budget increase for utilities, to continue to press higher. On the water and wastewater side, overall water, wastewater, and storm sewer showed a positive variance over budget of $168,000. Revenues exceeded budget by $51,000 or about 3%. Expenses were under budget by $135,000, driven by lower salary expenses, contracted services, and supplies and materials. This was partially offset, as I said, due to higher utilities, which just in general, Q1 tends to have higher utilities because it's winter time, and that's not always fully factored into our allocation of budget. Any questions from council?
I've got one on the next papers, but. Let me ask, or you're gonna talk about the spreadsheet or no?
No, I'm not gonna go line by line through it.
Yeah.
If you have specific questions, I can speak to.
Okay, so I've got one, the grants in lieu. So it says our yearly forecast is 294,800,000, and it looks like the first quarter's been kind of allocated. Is the 294,000 or 800, is that what the province would pay the town if they paid their full complement of tax, or is it the net? You mentioned something on another report of net and so on.
So the practice that we have, and this treatment has kind of bounced around a little bit over the years, so I can understand where the question is coming from. In the 2024 budget, we budgeted the revenue at the full amount, so the gross amount. For the provincial portion of grant in lieu, the province only pays half, and so we showed half of the amount as an expense. So that's roughly, if you look at the budget is 294,800 for the full year grant in lieu. Approximately 250 of that is provincial, and then 125,000 is budgeted as an expense. I believe under taxation, subject to check, we budgeted under taxation as an expense. And so that's, you know, we record that expense when we don't get half of it.
And things like, council has in the past and regularly, I think it's MGA, if a not-for-profit, group owns, property, we have, forgiven or not taxed them as such, or, right?
Right, so
Okay.
the copter program, that is
Copter.
expensed, within our budget. We have, again, subject to check, I believe it was around $210,000 is what we budgeted for that program, which is pretty consistent with the most recent year.
Yeah.
It has trended up over the years. So as council is aware, we previously did a renewal of all existing. So we basically staggered the renewal dates so that council will be able to go through the full list and do a 3-year renewal for that program.
So between the grants in lieu, the guild, and the copter, we're looking at, taxpayers are helping the province and helping the nonprofits, the province to the tune of 125,000, and the nonprofits in town to the tune of 210,000.
Approximately correct.
Yeah. Okay, that's just good to know and good to remember, because that every taxpayer in town contributes to those causes, the provincial costs. No, this comes to mind when the mayor of Edmonton is speaking to the province and saying, well, province, he was talking about 60 million for the city of Edmonton in terms of the grant in lieu. And I don't know if that was gross or net, but either if it's 60,000 or if it's 60 million or 30 million, that's a lot of money that, you know, we support these buildings and whatnot, and the infrastructure is ours, more or less, to compensate for, I guess. Anyways, that's just a little rant. Anyways, other people with comments on the variance report, questions? Okay, Councillor Boychuk, would you like to move that council accept the 2024 Q1 variance report for information?
I sure can do that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
In favor.
It is carried. Thank you, Mr. Mugford.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to the Provincial Highway 744 Main Street Sidewalk Replacement Project update with Mr. Fisher.
Good evening, your worship. Good evening, council. That's loud. It'll move out of the way. Do you still hear me, or is that? Yep, okay. I have a request for decision tonight on Highway 744. It's in Main Street. in town specifically. We've got a capital project that we started last year with replacing brick that has kind of settled and moved and created some potential concerns for our community. And it's a multi-year program that started last year and was to go into 2026. So for each of the years, we were gonna do a section of the brick and replace it with a concrete structure, so we didn't have as many tripping issues around town. We do some, so last year we did sort of 2 blocks on one side of the road. We publicly tendered it. We got costs ranging from 165,000 to 243,000. There were 3 bids. So we did the section that we completed. The province is also, while we were doing that work, simultaneously working on design work for Highway 744. Their plan includes doing curb replacements and sidewalk replacements. It's not all of it, but of sections that they've gone through and risk assessed and needed some serious attention. They also have a significant portion of road overlay. So from the traffic circle, basically to the Heart River Bridge, from the Heart River Bridge included in their package, all the way up to the railroad on the bottom of the hill there. And then their bigger project also includes some stuff up on the top of the hill as well. They also included sections of reconstruction, so where the road base needed some work, they've got some provisional stuff in there. And then painting of crosswalks, center lines, kind of all along the whole way. When we were talking with them, because they were asking us for information, it was pretty clear that our project, the sidewalk pieces in their project, the road and the curb, we're gonna overlay, like intersect, and there's gonna be a pretty significant amount of overlap. So we wanted to see if we could develop a bit of a partnership with them. Basically use the province's purchasing power to get more value for our dollar. So Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors came to the table with a memorandum of understanding, which would incorporate a large body of that work into their project that was supposed to happen this year. And gave us favorable terms for paying for it over 2 years in line with how we pay for our capital program. The rates that we have agreed to with Tech as administration for the section along the main street here, or the section that we did last year, would have cost us about $50,000 less to complete that section of sidewalk, based on the rates that we got from Tech. Over the entire area of the project, that savings translates to a bigger savings for our taxpayers, a huge benefit. Because we've got at least 3-4 times more work to do. They basically incorporated our work into their project. It is tender ready. When they announced the budget for this year, it got pushed off from construction. So they basically said, we're hoping that it'll go forward in 2025, but at the latest it'll go forward in 2026 for construction, but it's shovel ready. So if they need to spend some money, they have a shovel ready project basically ready to tender. So with working through this agreement, there is I don't have a consultant engaged to continue the design from last year, so I would have to redo that work. There were costs associated with incorporating the design of the sidewalk into the province's project that are already incurred because they've done the design. So we'd be on the hook for those. And if we tender it as a couple of smaller projects, we might get less interest. I know one of the 3 contractors that bid to us last year probably isn't gonna come to the table again. Sorry, I'm gonna grab a water.
Mouth is getting dry.
No water, that's no. So I know one of the contractors that they did not, will not come to the table again. So, So I have two options on the table, I think here. One is, do you want us to continue with the partnership that we've worked out with Transportation and Economic Corridors to save our residents money, or would you like me to engage a consultant and go forward and start design from scratch? Sorry.
So just to clarify, you're saying that I heard $50,000. And we have about 3 times, 2 to 3 or 4 times as much to do as the initial phase of that project. So are you saying that, the next phase of the project would be 3 or 4 times $50,000? Is that something different?
Sorry, can you please rephrase the question?
Okay, you said, something about the above project will cost approximately 50,000 less to complete. So the rest of the project, what's our estimated guesstimate, or can we?
I'd have
Is
to go on, I'd have to go and grab the total number, but it was about $600,000 is what we had budgeted over the 3 years. Give or
Okay,
take a little bit, that's not a specific number, I'd have to,
and so how much did we spend on the first phase?
it's 165 plus I have a change order for about 10 grand.
So almost 200,000, so 400,000 is kind of what we're talking about here,
No,
no?
well, for outstanding work,
Whatever the project would take to finish it.
I think I've got about $500,000 that I planned to spend
And-
with tech, and that would have gotten more done than just.
Okay, so
the-
500,000 with the province, and if we say no to the province, it's maybe 500,000 upwards.
It'll be more than that. I've already incurred about $60,000 worth of design to
So we would
complete
lose
the work.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor?
So what happens if 2026 comes, we postpone it, 2026 comes and they say again, oh, I'm sorry, we're gonna wait again. My concern is the shape of those sidewalks now. Now that, and what shape they're in, and if there's gonna be, accidents or liability connected to them.
That's a reasonable concern to push it out further than 2026, but I think that as a town, it would be perfectly reasonable to wait and see if they actually get it out to the street and tender it later this year. And then make a decision.
Councillor Scanlon?
So the original timeline for the completion of the project would, if, let's say, the tech wasn't involved at all whatsoever, the original timeline was 3-year, 3 phases. So it wouldn't have been completed till 2026 anyway?
No, we would have tried to get another section done this year and then complete what we could with the money we had in the last year, yeah. So it was to 2026 anyways, yeah.
Okay, so there's no potential to save time all that much. And how binding is your agreement with tech? Is this the equivalent of a legal contract? Like it's as good as done with as soon as they do it kind of thing?
We have a memorandum of understanding that we're obligated for some costs, but they've already sunk the design costs, so we're obligated for that.
Okay. And so if they do the project, they have to do our project. That piece of paper's been signed and ready to rock.
I believe so.
Okay.
Councillor Carr?
The $60,000 you said that you spent on design, is that through tech? And would that include curbs and everything else, or is that just removing the paving stones and putting concrete in?
That was the cost, so the engineering cost was incorporating the design into their project for the sidewalk pieces that we were gonna replace. The sections of curb that they were already gonna replace are included in their fee. Part of the agreement is that cost comes due, or I have to pay that cost when they start construction. Stop, but we have incurred that cost already.
But I'm just asking, what is the $60,000 for? I'm not understanding,
The drawings, the tender package,
including the curbs and everything else that.
the sidewalk pieces that we put into the project. The original cost estimate for the whole engineering of all 3 phases was $89,000 for reference.
I just thought if we were just paying for replacing the paving stones, I thought 60,000 was a little high for engineering, where my question was coming from.
The original proposal for all 3 phases was like $89,000.
Wow.
So,
It's public.
so if we, do not continue the partnership, when they do the work, is there some overlap still in the work?
Yeah, I think that there's very likely to be places where, if our curb or the curb they're replacing is butting up against our work, there's a chance that their contractor could damage our contractor's work, which is a pain in the butt, and cause warranty concerns. If we've got any pieces where we're doing like the ramps and we're cutting down into the road, if we're coming in afterwards, we're gonna be putting a patch onto Transportation's road, or if we're there at the same time, it's a scheduling pain in the butt.
So there would be some overlap.
Yes, 100% there would be.
Okay. Okay, councilors, further questions? Councillor Carr?
Could we not, with them delaying their portion of it, could we not do our portion this year and then next year, if they did announce the work, overlap at that time? Just to keep the ball rolling, because as Councillor Shannon said, they could, especially with an election coming, they could delay it indefinitely.
As administration, I feel like it would be prudent to try and save our taxpayers' dollars. Because it is tax funded, right? And it's a significant savings that they're offering.
I would absolutely agree we should be saving tax dollars, but there are other ways we could also save tax dollars. Those 3 contractors, were any of them local?
The high bid.
Because I did some calculations based on how much concrete would have been used there, as I'm sure you did. And there's an awful lot in labor there, an awful lot. And I know, and again, this falls under our purchasing policy that we have to revisit. But if we sent letters out to our local contractors, I think we would probably tend to save money as well.
The local contractor was a high price, about the 3 that I received.
Yes, but we have more than one local contractor that does cement.
I think okay, so I think that's a different scenario or a different thing, and the tenders were sent out publicly.
Right, your worship, that's what I was gonna say. We are required to follow the governing rules of purchasing, and that project would have exceeded the dollar value that it would have had to have been posted on a Alberta Purchasing Connection.
Yep.
So all local contractors would have opportunity to bid on that project.
Yes. But big companies in the city, as again, I'm sure you're aware, have people that specifically are hired to troll municipalities looking for work to bid. East River companies are a lot smaller. They don't have people that are there to look for work like that. They go mostly word of mouth. So they probably wouldn't be aware a lot. So sending a letter out, again, our purchasing policy doesn't allow it, but I think we'll see if we can change that. Sending a letter or an email or something notifying everybody that has a business license in town that does it may end up saving us money.
Councillor Card, it is posted on our webpage and our social media and on Alberta Purchasing Connection. What if I miss somebody as administration? You're putting an unreasonable burden on me. If I miss somebody, that's causing us more problems than if I just post it in the public places and say, keep an eye out.
I'm not on social media, so I wouldn't know that it's there. Our website, we all know, is very difficult to find things. Everybody that has a business license that is in that, you'd be covered. If you don't have a business license, you shouldn't be doing the work anyway.
So, before we get into that, basically, anybody can come to town and buy a business license if they see a business opportunity. So I think we should carry on with this, discussion, not the purchase policy as such. Counselor Boychuk, you have your hand up?
Director Fisher, between the two options, can you give us a value on the financial complications between option 1 and option 2? Like, do you have a number for those?
No, it's not an exact apples to apples comparison, Councilor Boychuk. So what happens with the bigger project partnering with tech is there's a lot of overhead costs that they eat, right? As part of their project, because they would be there anyways. So what happens is the agreed rates have lower mobilization costs, lower site occupancy costs, and quantities associated with them than we would have if it was the whole project. So, kind of like you have to pay to move your equipment on the site and off the site and on the site and then off the site, we end up, that's where we find a lot of the savings on our work. For the one project, it was, when I did the numbers, it was about 53,000 for specifics. That was 2 blocks out of the rest of Main Street that we're talking here. It is significant if you carry it over. Aside from that, there's a significant administrative lightning that comes with having tech take care of it. Means that I don't have to, because I can look at other things.
Deputy Mayor?
Just have one question. Regarding the safety of that area, are you comfortable leaving it? Like, I'm not sure how bad a shape it is in, but do you feel comfortable leaving it? Like, is there anything we should be concerned about there if we leave it for?
I haven't looked at it close enough, Councilor, Deputy Mayor Shannon, so I would have to go and do a proper assessment, and I haven't done that. There.
So in terms of sidewalks in town generally, though, I think there's legal cases that say the town, yes, you have sidewalks, yes, you try and maintain them as best you can. Is there not? Like, isn't there something, I seem to read something like that?
I think that there is a want of us to do it, but a recognizing that we do have limited resources. And when you look at the greater, we're gonna get all of it done right now. It's in transportation's 2025, 2026 plan. On the same timeline, I don't think that it is an unreasonable thing to consider.
Okay, Councilor Ford, any comments? So you have no comments on this one? No? Councilor Scammahorn?
So to summarize, we have the potential to complete the job in the same amount of time with way less work for you, because it's already been done, by saving a whole pile of money, by not having safety and conflict concerns with people trying to work in the same area at the same time, and then when the work is done, it won't potentially be damaged by other contractors coming in later. So we could get all of that, or we could not get that.
I didn't summarize it that way, but yeah. Okay.
Okay, who else? Okay, Councilor Ford.
Yeah, so the one concern I have is those trip hazards. Going back, like, I know of a trip hazard that was reported 4 years ago. It's been reported 3 times. Mind you, it's not right on that project, but somebody trips on that, it's a lawsuit. Because it's never been dealt with. But I've heard concerns of the trip hazards on Main Street. So my concern is with those trip hazards, and if somebody does trip, are we gonna be facing a lawsuit?
Probably. Will it go and will we lose it? Well, that's so the courts will figure out. But one thing I want to, just the contractor that's not going to give me a price this year is because somebody tripped while they were doing work and they're in a lawsuit. So.
And then my other question would be, depending on whatever council decides, if the, let's say, council chose to go ahead and start some of this work, and you're talking about that overlap, so if we finish our project and the other company comes in and damages it, and I'm just gonna use the bridge construction job as an example, where the lower West Peace boat launch was supposed to be put back in the same shape it was found. So with that being said, if we went ahead with this project, would that second project or the overlap, if they damaged any of our stuff, would it not have to be put back in the same shape that they came to it in? Like if our sidewalks are brand new and they damaged it, they would be responsible for putting it back into that same shape that when they started their project.
It should be, but I would have to fight them to get it done, like the boat launch. I don't think that the boat launch is done, right?
No, but that was supposed to have been looked after like a number of years ago, prior there again, prior to you coming onto administration, but.
That's kind of his point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of work and they may or may not show up, and our recourse if they don't show up is taking them to court.
Okay, any new comments? Okay, so as I understand it, we're deciding here to keep this partnership with Alberta Transportation. And it's been a good one in other ways. I kind of have a feeling with Alberta Transportation in terms of, yes.
Your worship, in my past community, I would have died to have an agreement like this. This is a wonderful partnership opportunity with Alberta Transportation. And their willingness to work with administration is not anything that I've experienced elsewhere. So I think that it would be really important also just to keep that kind of relationship going into the future.
Okay, and it's my understanding that if we wait at least one full year, maybe 2 years, depending on how the budget thing happens, that we are saving the taxpayer money. Okay, so I got that. Deputy Mayor, you had a point.
I'm prepared to put a motion on the board.
By all means.
I move that council directs administration to continue the partnership with the province for the downtown Main Street sidewalk replacement project and to bring an update to council when more information is available regarding the province's tender for the Highway 744:04 project.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't know how we're supposed to say that number either. How are we supposed to say 744:04? Like,
I don't know, 74404, I didn't really give it
that's
consideration.
the thing. Okay, yeah. Councillor Ford?
With that motion, is administration able to still talk to the other party to see if we can start and probably push this project a little quicker?
Which party?
Retail in Alberta.
Yeah, as in,
Yeah, I've met with, the administration from transportation multiple times, both at the project level and with their, most recently their director, and their plan currently does have it. 2025 is what they're hoping to do construction, so tender it this year.
spring of 2025?
They're hoping to tender it this year, so it's ready to go next year, spring. That could change, but that's what we're talking about.
Has it pushed again?
There's always the
No,
possibility, no matter what.
Construction in 2025, tendering this year.
Tender 2024, construction 2024. Okay, so we ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion?
In
Opposed?
favor?
Okay, it is carried. Thank you. Okay, Okay, Mr. Fisher is still in the chair, yard waste bin locations.
Okay, I'm hoping this one's, an easier conversation, maybe. So we had some requests about placing a second set of yard waste bins. These ones over here, we got them out a little earlier than we normally would. It's a Tenny parking lot. Normally they would go out after the May long weekend or in early May. We got them out in April this year, just because there was no snow and people were really anxious to get out and start clearing trees and using the bins. We did have a couple of requests if we could place some bins on West Hill. Just reduce the amount of distance people have to travel with yard waste. And put them up in two locations in the community. The position that would make sense on West Hill is probably back at Eco Center. That would be a fee that we would pay for to put them there. We would pay the bin rental and help them hold as necessary. The same contract that we have, same kind of contract that we have at Centennial. In 2023, we disposed, or the community disposed of 195 tons of yard waste at a cost of roughly $35,000. The cost this year will probably be $7,000 to $9,000 more, just because we got the bids out much earlier this year. At the Eco Center, if we wanted to add a second set of bins there, it'd be $15,000 to $20,000 a year. Put another 2 bins over there. That's gonna vary depending on how much yard waste gets picked up and how often they need to be cleaned up. I talked to the Peace Regional Waste Management Company, willing to do the advance, so work with us to say, hey, this bins need to kind of get emptied or picked up more often, go a little less often. So they were willing to do that, but they don't want to incur the cost of paying for the bins themselves right now. And it's an increase to the level of service. So if you wanted to have bins at 2 locations, it's something to kind of look at. We could do it without increasing the utility rate or the amount we charge for waste services. What would happen is that additional cost would just not go to reserve. So if you remember during the budgeting process, it might not, because we covered a lot of ground real quick. There's a portion of our utility bill that goes into a reserve in case there's an overage from the Peace Regional Waste Management Company again, we have to cover it. The amount of transfer would just get reduced by the cost of adding these additional bins. The reason it's coming to council for another decision is, or for a decision, is because this is a pretty significant change in level of service. And the question is whether you want to support adding a second set of bins, either permanently or as a trial. So we have 2 options included. Option 1 is you direct us to add a second set of bins on the West Hill. For an additional cost of $15,000 to $20,000 per year, or option 2 that don't let it, or sorry, I've mixed them up. Option 1 is that you direct us to keep it at the same level of service, so just the 2 bins that's a 10-year parking lot here. Or option 2 is that you direct us to work with the Peace Regional Waste Management Company to add second set of bins.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
I'd be in favor of doing a trial and seeing for 1 year the usage and you know, if it would be viable to do it ongoing. But I do think there's merit to that we have 2 locations, and it would you know, dragging, I know even from myself, dragging a truckload of branches or something across the bridge is not ideal either. So I see the logic in it, and I would support a trial to see what the uptake is on it.
Question, the Eco Center, so it now has gates and so forth. So people would be taking their yard waste inside the gates? Or?
Yeah, the bins would only be accessible during the Eco Center hours.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Councillor Ford?
Yeah, I was actually gonna bring that up because the hours are not, really convenient for a lot of people that do their yard work. What is the cost? Like disregard the bins themselves, so we have to pay, waste management a fee to have those bins in that yard?
No, the fee that I've included in the request for decision, Councilor Ford, is just the cost of the bin rental and the cost for, I've assumed hauling it 2 to 3 times a week, depending on how much they're used. And it's the same contracted rate that we use at Centennial. There is no additional fee from the eco or the waste management company for us to place them.
Hey, I'm just gonna throw an idea out there. This is only a block away. Different location, it'd be accessible 24/7 like these bins here. What about on 80th Street? Just in behind the Alliance Church, where we presently unload I know we've put snow there before, but we've presently unload the street sweeper there. There's a little turn out there that's accessible by vehicle. And people already illegally dump their grass clippings and trees there already, so having bins there might be a good idea. And that's just south of 80th Street and 106th Ave.
Or your driveway. That was a joke.
That would be my half here.
Right here.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor?
I've actually just reflected, trying to think of what he was saying.
Okay, Councillor Scanlon?
We've been having a lot of interest on the yard waste social media posts, so shout out to Stuart. Is there potential for saying like, hey, the bins are going to be temporarily relocated for a little while, kind of make a little story around that, and then perhaps, I do like the idea of having them accessible more often than the eco center hours, because those don't always fit my productive hours, and we're not gonna get into my productive hours, that's not what this meeting's for. But another option might be, potentially, it could be an option for a partnership with the business that might have some space they'd be willing to lend, but the idea being there's a few things going on here. The idea that maybe the bins are, advertised as going to be temporarily located on the West Hill for a short time to allow people on a few weekends to do things there, and then they come back to their regular home. And then perhaps your cost would not change, and I know this makes your job harder, so I appreciate what you're about to say, whatever it happens to be.
Mr. Fisher, did you have a response that you wanted to say for that, and then Deputy Mayor?
Your worship, to Councilor Scanlon's comment there. I think for a community service, it makes a lot of sense to keep this constant. If you keep moving it, the community is actually going to get really frustrated with the constant changing. They're going to be going, well, is it here or is it here? And then I think what you would see is if bins weren't in that location, you'd see people dumping anyways.
Would Public Works have any, that facility, would that have any room or even beside there?
Yeah. Deputy Mayor Shannon, I don't actually want the public having to go into my yard to do that, because I do run equipment and sometimes we've got like our loader and the grader, and I don't want the public having to be around that equipment regularly in the yard.
Councillor Good?
I think the movable object here is that, yeah, we can put a bin up there, no problem. We can put it in the eco center again, no problem. But now we have the time constraints, which I know are going to be a frustration for people. And the question is, because it's going to be, well, I went up there and I couldn't dump what I wanted to dump when I wanted to dump the stuff. And why is it that the eco center is there and we're paying for the eco center with the Peace Breezeway? I mean, I can see where this is going to go. I mean, what do they say? You don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. So I can see that being a real frustration for people. And I think that if we're going to put it up on the West Hill, we have to come up with a West Hill location that can be used at the same times as here, which is basically, I can come here in the middle of the night if there's nobody there, and I can dump in the middle of the night. Am I wrong? Because nobody's watching, I can go do what I want.
You are not wrong, and one of the things that I actually like about this as a 24-hour location is that it is well lit.
Yep.
And very, very visible in the community, which I'm gonna be honest, this is like, and I know there's been a bunch of posts about contamination in waste bins. But there's not really a lot of contamination. We're not having to remove couches and furniture and things that really, really shouldn't be in there. It's garbage bags full of yard waste, which is
Right.
a mild annoyance. There is a risk that if you put it in a location where it is not supervised, and not very visible, like by the church, that we would see that shift. and change.
It's not light there, but it's very accessible 24/7.
It's accessible, but it's not, doesn't have like massive amounts of traffic there 24 hours a day. I mean, here you have people driving to the pub and back and stuff like that. I mean, there's some visibility. I mean, hey, I'm all for having two locations. I just don't think that the eco center, as it's being run now, is viable for the waste that we want to put there. Because it's not open when people want to do it. I mean, it's open. It's basically, if you can do it while you're at work, you can do it.
I question, Councillor Ford's location, it's not on pavement. You'd have to drive off pavement to do it.
It's solid.
Yeah, so that's my little throw out there as well, because when I drop off stuff over here, there are stuff on the pavement, but that's easy to clean up. It's not in dirt or half over the bank sort of thing. So that's another consideration. But it's accessible.
Yeah, this area here is, it's like driving on a gravel road and people are already illegally dumping their branches and grass clippings into the creek that's in behind.
Maybe we should be attending to that somehow, because it's a fire hazard as well. So who has, Mr. Mumford?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a brief comment, in defense of the eco center location. With the changes they made in terms of requiring that people prove that they're residents here, the number that was thrown around was 40% reduction in the amount of volume for other things they're going through there, like cardboard and that sort of thing. So it's a consideration of our ratepayers that we do have some, by using that location, we're able to control that it's only residents of the town that are using that. It's one of the concerns with this bin location is that, people that don't live here and don't pay through our utility, through our monthly utility bill, they don't pay for that service, but they're using it. And, the tipping fees are a relatively small portion of the overall cost. It's the cost to truck it back and forth. That's where the bulk of the cost comes from. So the more volume that's going in those bins, the more trips, the more cost. So just something to consider.
If you're gonna do that, be really clear in the communication. These are the hours that it's open. These are the times that you can go there. These are when and where. To kind of preempt the why I went up there and it wasn't open, and say, if you want to dump at a certain amount of time, you drive across the bridge. If you don't want to do that, do it at this time. But I think we also have to be prepared for the people who won't read it, won't look at it. Even if they did, we'll tell you they didn't. I mean, whatever.
Councillor Carr? No? So I guess, as the briefing note indicated, this would be a change in service level, which to a certain extent is not in the budget then, right? There's other ways, but it could also be left for next budget level discussions too. So Councillor Carr, Councillor Scanlon.
Do we call for them to dump, or do they do it on a regular basis?
We call, because there's lots of times where we'll come in and say, no, I can wait till tomorrow. There's been days where we'll dump it in the morning and then it'll get real full. We'll say, it's pretty much full, so plan on coming in tomorrow morning. So the administrative assistant that works for me, she parks there and she usually coordinates with them in the morning. We plan on dumping it on Monday morning and usually Friday, just to make sure that it's empty before the weekend. Thank you.
Councilor Cameron?
We're gonna beat this one to death, it looks like today, so I guess we'll just keep going. When you say it for a trial, do you mean like kind of like if you were to do it, you would just do it for the rest of the year?
Yeah, and then I could come back with some statistics later this year and let you know how it went. How many tons, additional tons we diverted as a community, or maybe what we saw is that we diverted the same amount and it was a little less convenient. But we paid $20,000 more to divert the same amount of yard waste and telling in terms of information.
So this is kind of one of those things that you had mentioned this before, like you can't just do it for a little, like, well, we'll do it for a month, you know, because people did. Right now, everybody's very habituated. They've been here for 2 years. And so this is sort of the culture now that's where they are. People are used to it. I would be concerned about a trial period as well, as if you did it, realized it wasn't any help and took it away, then you've got the same things as, well, why did you take it away? You used to have it. It's almost better to not do it than to do it and stop doing it. So I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
I would like to move option one, that council direct administration keep the level of service for yard waste bins as is.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Give me a minute.
Long enough?
Okay, we've got a motion in front of us, which is to keep the level of service as is. All those in favor of the motion?
Sorry, Mark's got his hand up.
So, Councillor Boychuk?
I just wanted to quickly state as for somebody who spends a lot of time in the hills and on the west side, there's an awful lot of dumping going on in our bushes. And I think when people get into the habit of dumping grass, it ends up being a lot more other things too. And so, yeah, I'm all for Councillor Ford's idea of putting a bin up on the by the church there. I think that's a good area.
Okay, so the motion in front of us is to leave the level of service as is. So that is the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed to the motion?
I'm opposed.
It is defeated. So if it is defeated,
I'll make a motion.
okay, Mr. Good,
I move that we do option 2 at the Eco Centers for the trial for the rest of the season.
sorry,
Well, option 2, which is direct administration of work, Peace Breach Waste Management to provide a second location at the Eco Center within the town, additional costs up to 20,000 pilot project, et cetera, and that their service be reviewed in 2024. That leaves an option if that's defeated to probably to take another kick at the cat at another location, but it gives us the option of a trial. So option number 2 as stated.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's a problem that we have right now, I realize, with the wording of the prescribed motion, is the prescribed motion should have been to not, or something, because right now we're not leaving it as is, and we're kind of sort of in motion limbo. So that's not good.
That's a learning exercise.
That's okay. I should have read it more carefully as well. So this has been fun. It's all been very enjoyed.
So can you accept my motion? Is that the question?
I think we can, because it was defeated to leave it as is, so, okay, what are you gonna do? Right? Councillor Ford?
So I still like the idea of the 80th Street location, even though it's dark, reason being 24/7. People already illegally dump there, and as Councillor Boychuk said, there is a couple of access points right there into the hill, into that private property where all that other illegal dumping is going on, like people's shingles and couches. 1 year we pulled an old trampoline out of there. So
Where you get shoots and couches.
Which defeats the purpose. It does, like totally. Okay, so the motion, as I understand it from Mr. Good, is basically option 2.
Yes.
Okay, option two, it's at the Eco Center, additional cost 20,000 K and funded out of the existing utility rate. And be reviewed in the fall of 2024 for level of service 2025. It stands the motion?
So the eco center hours are Saturday from 10 to 2.
Yes.
There is some
Until-
Saturday, not closed Monday and weekdays till what time? 5?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 5, Thursday, 10 to 6, Saturday, 10 to 2, just so we're aware of what we're voting on.
Yeah, so that doesn't.
However, that is the motion.
Hours, yeah.
Mr. Mudford, do you have a comment or no?
Just again, defense of the eco center, they've got cameras at that location, right? When people are on camera, generally, I think they're more likely to behave properly. Again, to Director Fisher's comments, we've had pretty good compliance with the rules of this location because it's very visible, it's well lit, it's open. If you take those bins to a darker location, our cost for tipping fees will triple because they won't accept it as a waste or clippings and branches. It's going to triple if the load is contaminated. So, you know, the town, we have for residential customers at least, a relatively decent sized bin that gets picked up once a week. If you create an option for people to dump their couches and whatever else in a relatively unlit, on a controlled area, I think you're gonna see significant cost increases over time.
And right now, it's being checked by someone who's regularly going by there anyways, so who's checking when it's that now we have to add a duty to someone's day to check.
Well, they'll walk into the Eco Center at the gate will say, what are you bringing in? And everybody will say, clean yard clippings
You have to show a card to get in.
and a card.
Present.
But at the eco center, I mean, like again, there's
Still do it.
cameras. I think, people generally, the odds of getting compliance there, I think are significantly higher than if you just have it on the honor system.
Yeah. Okay, so we're clear on the motion. Everyone? Okay. All those in favor of the motion?
In favor.
Opposed?
I'll be the stick in the mud.
Okay, it is carried.
Everyone
Option
takes a
two.
turn. What's that? Everyone takes a turn.
Oh,
Oh, there you go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Councilor Ford, you've got sweet hookups for bins, I already know
Okay.
this.
So,
The camera too, they-
next up, we have the camping bylaw, which Mrs. Miller wants to talk about.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the request for a decision before council is we're seeking a formal request to provide the RCMP to prioritize enforcement of the town's camping bylaw. Excuse me. As you're aware, this is significant encampment along the dike on the east side of the river, and it's been brought forward by multiple residents and visitors and businesses expressing concern over the safety along the paved dike pathway. Council administration have been working to find solutions to this challenge, and part of the solution was to introduce a new camping bylaw, which council passed recently, and that actually restricts camping on town property. So following the adoption of that bylaw, it was presented to our CMP staff sergeant and asked to begin coordination of the dismantlement of that camp. We understand it's going to take a coordinated effort between our CMP administration and support services such as Zegatawa. During that discussion, I was advised that the staff sergeant would need a legal opinion on that request, and he has sent our camping bylaw along with the information that was provided to us by Alberta Environment on ownership and enforcement rights along the river there. And so subsequently, if we could get a motion indicating council's desire to have the camping bylaw enforced, we will move that over to the staff sergeant, and he can provide that to legal as well for further review.
Thank you. Any questions, councilors? Yes?
So in the recommended motion, does it have to be that specific address saying adjacent to the paved highway, or can it be all areas of town? Like, and the reason why I say that is because when we were out cleaning up with the community and Councillor Scanlon there is multiple areas in town where there were encampments. So would this motion not allow the authorities to enforce the camping bylaw in other areas? Or is this specific to that address on, so we're kind of pointing the finger at that one area.
Well, I mean, the camping bylaw applies everywhere.
Everywhere.
I think they're aware it applies everywhere. But I don't think we're restricting its application by including this location, but we're also saying this is a location of concern right now. But that's a very well stated point. Thank you, sir. You should come to my classroom. I could use you every once in a while.
We should not go there. CAO Miller, any thoughts on?
I know that we were looking to adjust this one specifically because it's active, but I do see your concern, so I'm just wondering, if you just add some words at the end of it and any other.
You want to try that? Put the words on the end?
Sure.
And other sites as appropriate.
Yeah, that's good.
Your worship, I would be willing to put a motion on the floor that council requests the local RCMP detachment to prioritize the enforcement of the camping bylaw on the town property municipally known as 9614 94th Street, adjacent to the paved pathway of the Peace River Dike and other sites as appropriate within the town limits.
So this specifically applies to town property sites.
Correct.
Riverfront Park.
So town property sites, not other private property sites.
But that's the bylaw.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, everybody understands the motion? All those in favor of the motion?
In favor.
It is carried. Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Okay, next up, we have the Bill 20. So Bill 20 is a bill that's being brought before the legislature by Municipal Affairs. It's called the Municipal Affairs Amendment Act. It's called Bill 20. And council has had the opportunity to attend a seminar or two on concerns about Bill 2020. So Bill 20, it changes quite a bit about how town councils might operate. For instance, it does change things in Edmonton and Calgary initially, saying that political parties could be working there. And just for other people's knowledge, I guess, on political parties. So political parties, say we had a town council of 7 people. It means that you could have a council of, I don't know, 3 from one party, 4 from another party. And councillors are not supposed to meet in private and make decisions. So the political parties, if there was a 4-3 such case, the group of 4 can have their little political caucus outside of council chambers, come up with whatever they wish to come up with, bring it to council, and carry on shooting it through because they are a majority. It goes counter to the MGA, which says, no, councillors, you shouldn't be meeting outside of your public council chambers and making decisions. So that's my understanding of the political party kind of issue. It is being said that, well, didn't we know that there's political parties anyhow in some of the bigger cities? And You can take your feelings about whether you think that's true or not. So that's one of the issues. Other issues that come up are one about dismissing counselors and overturning local bylaws without publicly disclosing the reasons. So it's our understanding that cabinet could say, Counselor X, you're dismissed, goodbye. And they've decided it back in the cabinet chamber, cabinet room without any public transparent discussion about that. And, you know, maybe there are reasons that if we get to that point, but that's the law as, or the bill as it's being presented. They could overturn local bylaws without publicly disclosing the reasons. So the understanding from Alberta Municipalities Association on that one is that's what the bylaw says, anything without publicly disclosing the reasons. The response from the province when asked has been, well, we would only do that if municipalities were overstepping their abilities on certain issues. They quoted the mask bylaw, which apparently was part of that. They're the one. So there's other things about donations and that sort of thing, which changes the limits. Bill 20 maintains an individual contribution limit of $5,000. That might be well out of reach of the average Albertans, creates an environment where the interests of more wealthy Albertans may take priority. This is Alberta's Muni thoughts on that particular one. Now, I can't go over all the reasons that Alberta Munis has come up, but in your package on page 315 of our agenda package, there's a summary of proposed changes under Bill 20. Some from the Municipal Government Act part, some from the Local Authorities Election Act. Under the Local Authorities Election Act, there are various things, including prohibiting automated vote counting equipment, which some municipalities are getting into basically to save some money during administering elections, I understand. I don't know, you've got this document in front of you as well. Anybody want to bring up anything about it?
Well, the other thing is, over the last number of months, we've been surveyed through legitimate government channels as to, is this what you guys want? And I believe those results came back loud and clear that no, political parties should not be. And why? Well, I guess the question is, why did you ask if you weren't, if you didn't really care what anyone had to say in the first place? So that's the other side of it. And I would like to add, it was this government in the first place that said, you know, we're not gonna make a mask law, you municipalities deal with it. And now we're supposed to forget that that was the decision that was made when they bring that up as a reason why they don't want to allow it. So it's like, sorry, guys, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too.
Here, here.
There was another one that came up about fully exempting nonprofit affordable housing from property taxing. So think of our earlier discussion about the grant in lieu and nonprofit already that we exempt. Well, there could be more nonprofit affordable housing groups that would have their whole buildings excluded from our property tax. So the government is not saying that they would compensate municipalities for any of these things. The funding part is not to be discussed yet, I guess. So, Councillor Good, please.
In my history of changing my mind, last week I spoke about the idea of conflict of interest, and I'm in a conflict of interest and I have to vote. And I thought that was not right. Until it was pointed out to me that fiduciary, pecuniary interest is demonstrable. It's something you can actually demonstrate, you can prove it is or it isn't, that it exists. Conflict of interest is one of those nebulous kind of things. And the reason it's not included along with pecuniary interest at this point is that I can claim conflict of interest as I perceive it. And I can then decline to vote. So I can basically use it as a get out of jail free card or an extension card anytime I feel it. So why? I have a conflict of interest. What is it? Well, you know what? I have privacy and I don't really want to go into it, but it's a conflict of interest, believe me. And the government has said, no, you can't. So then the public at that point can judge you by your actions, knowing that you have declared a conflict of interest. So you can declare it and you can vote in a way that you believe is appropriate. I've changed my mind. I can see the reasons that it's excluded or that it's different from pecuniary reinvest. So an objection I had to it being changed, I think there's arguments on both sides. I think the one thing that came clear out of the seminar that we took was the almost overwhelming support for asking that the bill be rescinded, not just picked apart and such. I don't think there's any, I'm probably not gonna be the more popular guy for saying this. I don't think that there was a conspiracy to try and take over anything. I don't tend to operate and believe that. I think most people get into government for the right reasons. But I don't think it was really well thought out. And I think the intentions that they may have had in the beginning, they boxed themselves into a corner by saying, we're supporting this, the same as the RCMP thing, or a lot of things. You can make your statement as to what you believe without the information. And the more you research it, it's really hard for politicians to, well, for some, change their mind to go back on what they thought. Well, I can't do that because my party said this, so I've got to support it, come heck or high water. So I really support the motion or the idea of asking the government to rescind it in its totality, take it back, think about it, think about the issues that they're talking about, and do a sober second thought. So.
Thank you. So I will want to mention some changes that Alberta Munis does support with qualifications, so we could decide whatever we think. It enables the minister to create a regulation to define powers and circumstances for which a local election can be postponed in emergencies such as natural disasters. So remember the issue last year around, what is it? Yeah, Yellowhead County and floods, fires, etc. Another one, enable municipalities to require candidates to submit a criminal record check at nomination.
That's $25 though.
Require issue-based advertisers to register and report finances. Reduce donations to third-party advertisers from 30,000 to 5,000 per election period. Election period starts on January 1 of 2025. Expand the use of special ballots and update processes. Alberta Munis supports requiring recounts if requested by candidates and the vote margin is in 0.5% of total votes. So it's supportive of that. CAO Miller?
I think I need to clarify something. Nomination period opens January 1, but election period would be from the close of nomination to election day. So I think it's like September. I don't know the exact date.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Alberta supports with qualifications, responsibility of validating signatures for a recall petition will change from the CAO to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. So they get to do all the checking. Mandates that all councillors attend orientation training after their election. Supports with qualification that a councillor's seat is automatically vacant upon disqualification. And minister may create regulations regarding criteria and exemptions for joint use planning agreements with schools. Enable multi-year residential property tax incentives. So I think that's a new one to try and get more accommodations of various sorts. So those are some of the things that Alberta Munis has come across in their view. Well, I should say in their view, they had, I think at one of the seminars, 400 people at this webinar who had some, they did some little voting things. So they're suggesting that we can talk to our MLAs, write a letter to Premier Smith, Minister McIver, and or MLA, pass a motion in council, they have suggested one, contact the local media and talk with our residents about Bill 20 to inform them of some possible consequences in their municipality. So, councilors, any thoughts?
This might, to your point, our procedural bylaw allows council to vote that if you have a conflict of interest that you can abstain. I don't know if the MGA allows for it, but our procedural bylaw does. That might be something that actually isn't permitted.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if anyone doesn't feel like reading that whole motion, I would be willing to do so.
Go for it.
I'll move that council send a letter to the premier that recommends that the government of Alberta rescind Bill 20, the Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act, due to the extensive concern raised by municipal leaders across Alberta, including Peace River Council, and that the government of Alberta engage municipal governments through a collaborative and trust-based consultation process to update the Local Authorities Election Act and Municipal Government Act to assist municipal governments to effectively govern in the interests of their residents and deliver on future needs of each community in Alberta. I wrote that myself. I did not.
Yeah, well formatted by somebody. Any other comments, concerns before we vote on that motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
I'm in favor.
It is carried. Thank you. Councilors, do we want to do anything else? The motion speaks to sending a letter to the premier.
I would like that letter CC'd to the parties mentioned in the letter as well, or in your communique that you had there. Our own MLA as well as Minister McIver and the local media for what it's worth.
Yeah. Councilors, any opinions on that? Right. Good with the intent?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for that. Because now we're moving right along to reports. First one is my council event attendance report for April. I attended with several other councilors the land use bylaw session that admin put on, the Chamber of Commerce trade show, celebration of the library's 90th year, and meeting with Minister Jean with respect to nuclear. That was an online thing, and basically he seemed positive towards nuclear, but the province is investigating its regulations and whatnot. I think it was just after that the province signed an agreement with Saskatchewan saying that they would work together on these regulations and so on. I attended a very interesting conference called Community Planning Association of Alberta, and they had some very interesting speakers as well. I could say one of them said he thinks that now climate change initiatives are leading rather than reacting in our mindset. So that was just kind of interesting. He was talking about, another one talked about making sure that various plans at the municipal and provincial levels are streamlined, cooperating between municipalities, things like that. I attended an interesting one on AI. City of Edmonton, one of the grad students of U of A has a major project, and he was using the planning department as his focus. And they at times could reduce their development permits from 45 days to 1 hour. However, the caveats were that whatever went into the AI system had to be very clear. Like if you were scanning stuff into the system, if the scans weren't good, AI can interpret it the way AI wants to. So that is another thing. Some municipalities, the county of Newell in particular, spoke about developing policies around AI within their municipality. So that just might be something that's coming forth for us. Okay, Councillor Ford, anything you want to say there?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so we ran the Walker Lose It program during the Junior B Provincials at the Baytex Energy Center, April 6th. We observed approximately 150 plus vehicles. Those vehicles were from anywhere from south of Calgary all the way up to high level because of the provincials. Participated in the Chamber of Commerce Trade Fair April 12th. And then both Councillor Scammerhorn and I participated with volunteers just a couple of weeks ago on a community organized event where we cleaned up approximately 90 cubic yards of garbage off of our river shoreline and up in the hills.
Thank you. Councillor Scammerhorn?
Nothing new. I did a lot of what you guys did there as well, which you've already spoken to, and forgot about the conversation with Minister Jean, which was informative. And yeah,
Okay, thank you. Any questions of those reports? Okay, then we have the Economic Development Committee special meeting minutes. Councillor Carr.
What we did is we gave out a bunch of money. There was one group that is doing river activities. We gave them money for equipment. We gave a business in town that's been broken into a number of times, money for roll shutters. We gave a company up on the hill money for signs. Very, very, very diverse requests. And we managed to, very positive.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Councillor Carr on that one? Councillor Ford?
So with your comments, so some of those monies that were given out were for the security part of the program. So that would be the first security request so far.
First one's been awarded. I'm the alternate, so I don't know what was requested last time, but
Yeah, I heard that was the first one.
Okay, thank you. Next one, Economic Development Special Meeting Minutes. Councillor Carr again.
which one? Sorry.
There's two. April 23 and then April
Oh, I didn't attend that
30th.
other one. Sorry, I didn't attend the other.
Okay, so is this an extra one that was added, April 30th?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just spoke to the 30th.
So then there was April 23.
Oh, okay, I'm a little confused here.
Me
I
too.
apologize. Actually, we didn't have quorum.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so we weren't able to conduct our,
That was on April 23.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, after that, we then have RCMP Regional Community Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Councillor Ford.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the one that I did report on is I did report to the our advisory committee about council's decision in regards to the septic project that was run in town and council's decision on the planters that are on Main Street. So that was quite well received. Also, we're running, like I say, we're running the Lock It or Lose It program. We have 1,200 handouts that were printed from the town, and we will actually this year be distributing them into the schools this coming fall for the kids to take home to their parents.
Great. Any questions of Councillor Ford? Okay, would someone be prepared to move that council accept reports 9.1 through 9.4 for information?
So moved.
Okay, Councillor Ford moves that. All those in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. Okay, next up, information, council information package of May 3rd. So May 3rd, one of the things on it was AHS notification that the Grimshaw Emergency Department is changing their hours. So at one point in time, they were 24 hours, I think, then they went from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. They're now 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. to allow the doctors a couple of hours afterwards to catch up on their things before 9 o'clock rather than doing that to 11 o'clock. Might help retain some doctors. There's also a letter from the women's shelter included in this set of communication items, basically thanking everyone for their contributions, letting us know that the total project cost to remediate the mold and so on was $555,550. And the financial support from the government ministry was important, and they also thanked the towns and municipalities for their contribution, and Peace River contributed 20,000 to that. There is an invitation, Alberta Municipalities 2024 Summer Municipal Leaders Caucus. There's one happening in Blair on June 12th, maybe. Yeah. So there's information on how to register for that one as well. Yeah, June 12th. There's a virtual one as well on June 14th. And I attended the National Red Dress Day Walk and Vigil, as did Councillors Scammahorn and Councillors Boycha. And there was, I would estimate, 50-60 people there. A new elder, a different elder this time organized it, and I thought it was well done, and some very sad stories brought up too. Anybody else have anything on May 3rd that they want to bring forth? Okay. Then how about the May 6th Governance and Priorities Committee meeting minutes? It's a draft, so basically, open up the draft. May 6th Emergency Advisory Committee meeting draft as well. So pay attention to those, and they'll be brought up in the future for moving of acceptance. Maybe somebody right now could move the council accept items 10.1 through 10.3 for information. Councilor Good? Sure. Councilor Good, so moves. All those in favor?
In favor.
It is carried. Do we have any notices of motion?
I have none, your worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is comments from the public. And I see Mr. Sissons, you're in the audience, so I'm going to ask that you keep your comments to 2 to 3 minutes. I'm sure you can do it, because you've done it before.
I'm gonna ask that you respect my right to speak in a germane fashion, and I'll cover the topics that I wish to speak to
Okay, but we're
as
gonna,
quickly as possible.
as quickly as possible,
I
let's go with
understand it
that.
was a long council meeting.
Yeah,
for
so come and do
everybody
your
this
thing.
evening. That also includes me.
Yeah, yeah. Believe me, it's been a long council meeting, I know that. So these comments are to be on the topics of the meeting.
That were germane to this evening's procedures.
Yep, thank you.
First of all, I'd like to commend all of council for their stand on the provincial bylaw 20. Good for you guys. We know people that have made that sort of thing happen before, named Adolf. So that's as far as we'll go with that. How do I sign up for the remuneration review committee?
I believe there, you go to the website and you look for the section where it's got it's one of the big tabs. Is it not?
I guess I asked that the wrong way. I'm just gonna put my name forward.
Yeah,
Demonstrating a large amount of community involvement,
Yeah.
more so than a lot of others.
So what you need to do though is get it on paper so that it can be considered with anyone else that, well, you know.
I will follow through with that. I want council to take note that I'm asking to be put on that committee.
Okay.
Further, thank you for council's effort in recognizing responsible pet owners' desire to spade and neuter their pets, so that SPCA is not under continued extra financial pressure due to less pets being spayed and neutered, by less, in certain circumstances, responsible, pet owners, and offsetting the cost of a spade or neuter, by manipulating the licenses in the fashion that they did, over time. If you spade or neuter your pet, then the license fees would reflect your effort to do so and, cover it. Because with the way council did that, that would help to encourage more people, I thought, to spade and neuter their pets and take some pressure off the SPCA by doing so. So I thought that that was a good decision. In regards to the sidewalks, Shelley had concern that will they last in regards to if the province or whoever keeps delaying. It's like, yes, we'll do it, but then, oh, maybe not. And it was pointed out by members of council that in regards to that, you can't necessarily trust the fact that they're actually gonna do it or they're not. And in the meantime, those sidewalks keep deteriorating and expose our town to possible litigation due to known issues that weren't dealt with. And thus one of the only avenues of the MGA that you can be successful with is for negligence, which I am very familiar with. So I would suggest that there might be some interim things that weren't brought up, which are, I'm aware that some of the deterioration in that brickwork is because from the time it was put in, too long a period from when it was put in till now, where the bricks, you can seal those. There's a lot of sealers on the market now, which are applied to the surface, which do a chemical bond with the bricks and the mortar in between, and they keep the water out. Because a lot of that is through frost heave. For the water penetrates the brick and the substrate underneath, and with our climate, once that happens, those sections of sidewalk that aren't resistant to water entering them start to frost heave, and thus a contributor to the uneven surface, which causes the cascade effect, which is the tripping. So one of the things we could do when we're waiting to address Councillor Shannon's concern is perhaps look at very limited brick replacement in the interim of the most deteriorated sections, and also sealing, resealing the brick with a water repellent so that between now and the time we do get them replaced, they're not being inundated with further freeze and thaw cycles due to the introduction of more water because they're no longer sealed properly like they perhaps should have been, which would have prevented this to a large extent. In my mind, but you can't think of everything, so maybe we better bring it up now as a interim solution on the sidewalks. Can I ask a question about the Queen?
She's up there until we, as she's supposed to be with the draping, until we get a new picture of King Charles.
That's exactly what I was wanting to find. And when do we have any
I have no idea what that.
ETA? Does the British government send it to us, or do we
The
purchase that
federal
ourselves?
government and province deal with that, so, yeah.
Okay. As far as the bins, an alternate location that wasn't maybe thought of. You know where the fire department has its wrecked cars and the location right beside the town shops? It's also fenced off kind of on that corner, or are you?
I'm familiar with that, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's not too badly lit and it's right beside the town shops. It's also, we could consider opening the gates there for a normal period more than business hours to keep it more accessible to deal with some of the issues that are present with the hours at the recycling center. And it's not too hard to get the fairly cheap and expensive camera that I can get one that I can put up on the telephone post outside of my place. The batteries will last 2 months and I can have the pictures come to my cell phone. They're readily available now. So if you put up signs that said, you are on camera, and then bother to put up a couple of those cameras and considered having the bins there, because that's a piece of property that I understands under the town's auspices, is it not? As an alternate location to the church. And the other way we might be able to deal with this and cut down the delivery costs that are a large percentage, I understand, of what this takes to run, is there's a big enough space there that if, when you go to the dump and you dump your yard waste, they just, obviously, because it's already at its end location, they just have a pile. They don't use bins. Then they push it with a cat or whatever. Well, we're right beside the town yards where all their equipment is. And if we just dumped it in bulk, if there's a big enough space that's being.
Excuse me, Ted. See
I just
you.
wanted to bring it out of time.
Okay, thank you. So Ted, just talk a little faster, please.
I'm covering quite a few subjects very
I know.
quickly here. I'm doing my best. So could we look at, could council re-examine whether that might be a place to an alternate suggestion to put yard waste? And then don't use bins until the end of the season where it's crushed up by the cats and the equipment, and then loaded in bins or transported that way.
The motion's already done, Ted, so that decision's been made.
And it be brought back up because that wasn't mentioned.
It can be brought back at next budget. Hello.
I'm just trying to help.
Yeah.
I'm just about done. The nuclear business. Like what?
Not probably.
Wasn't already.
Okay. Won't be the but yeah, that's all for me, folks. But I will say that I appreciated a larger percentage than usual of Councillor Scammellhorn's participation this evening.
Good to know.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Ted. And,
Have a wonderful evening.
You all as well.
okay, next up, key communication items, councilors. What do you think? Say so. Curbside recycling, cleanup, weekends, all that stuff.
That's camping, enforcing the camping bylaw is important.
Okay, the camping bylaw. Any others?
The bins to the west side.
Bins for the west side. Mhm. Okay, we set the tax rate bylaw. Council remuneration committee, rec plan from the MDOP, so that would be well worth any public reading that one. The sidewalks and the 744-04 project with Alberta Transportation. Those ones come to my mind as well. Any others? The rates. We had the rates and fees bylaw. Okay, so we got through it. And now I think we need to get reorganized for about 5 minutes. 8:48, we'll be back here and then go into closed session. Oh.